Thank you. Welcome everyone to the Centerville City Council meeting being held here on March 3rd at Centerville City Hall. We welcome those of you that are joining us from the public. We welcome staff. We welcome those that are online. We welcome council. And as always, to make sure that we can do business tonight, I'll do a roll call to council, starting with Councilwoman Meekum.
Meekum present.
Bangeter present.
Heyman present.
First present.
Plummer present.
Thank you, council members, for being here and being diligent in your duties. I'm Mayor Wilkinson. So since we can do the business, let's proceed. I think the first thing we'll look at is a legislative prayer of thought from Councilwoman Shaylin Heyman.
So I think that most in the city, certainly all of those here, are aware that we recently lost our fire chief, Greg Stewart. An incredible man, an incredible civil servant, and I wanted to take a minute to pause and to reflect and to appreciate his life and his service. And I met him for the first time when actually you and I, Mayor, were going through I was a newly elected city council member, and I went to fire school to learn how to be a firefighter. And I met Chief Stewart for the first time, and I was very impressed with him then. I didn't have the opportunity to work with him closely, but I know that Mayor did, and so I have asked for purposes of my time just to turn over the time to Mayor to share a few thoughts about Chief Stewart.
There's a lot to be said about the chief, and as Greg, as I know him as well too. In fact, we have one of our former chiefs with us tonight as well too that knew him really well, even better than myself. But I'll just reflect on a couple of interactions I had. I was the board chair in 2024. The board is made up of the 5 mayors and 1 city council, one county commissioner make up the board, and I was the board chair. And when the former fire chief, Chief Stone, resigned, we went through an interview process, and I had the opportunity to extend that offer, being the board chair, to Chief Stewart to be the chief. He served in that role for a year and a half. He did a marvelous job. I had 2 or 3 months to work with him as the board chair, and that was a very positive experience. But I think the thing I remember, one thing I remember really well about Chief Stewart is the opportunity that this past fall, he and I had to go up to a Utah State football game in Logan, and they were playing the Air Force. And we had the opportunity. I'm such an Aggie, but here, Chief Stewart and I, it's like, what? We start talking about the Air Force, and we talk about these guys playing football for the Air Force. That they're really just playing football because they love to play football, but they're going to be serving our country in the Air Force. And and Greg was one of those servants as well too, being a firefighter, and we're both such Aggies. He grew up in Richmond, up there in Cache County, and here we are going back and forth, saying, "Oh, those guys are just studs, man. They're just awesome," and we're both Aggies, and we just talked ourselves into, well, we got to cheer for Air Force today. I mean, they're the guys on the front line for us, and Chief Stewart was one of those on the front line, just loved the man and had an amazing experience with him. We had an amazing day that day and evening as well too, going to dinner and talking as we came home, and that's when I could see why he was really in the fire service, because he loved to serve, and he felt that was a way that he could serve his country, just as those players that we saw on the field that were serving for going to the Air Force Academy, and we're going to be serving us in the Air Force. So that's my thoughts of Chief Stewart.
Thank you so much for taking that time. I'd just like to have a moment of silence so that we can remember the service and the amazing human that Chief Stewart was. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to ask Councilwoman Meekum if she'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, but before we do that, after that moment of silence, it makes me think that I'd like to offer a prayer as well. Our Father in heaven, we're very grateful that we can be here this evening, and we're thankful for this time that Councilwoman Heyman took to honor our Chief, Greg Stewart. We ask that thou may be with him and his family this time, and also with all our firefighters and policemen and other first responders, and all of us as well too. We're mindful of others in the community that have lost loved ones, and ask that thy blessings and spirit may be with them as well. We're so grateful that we can live in this country, that we can have these freedoms that we have, and we have this ability to meet in an open meeting like this to discuss the business of the people, and help us to be able to have thy civil discourse with us as we have these discussions this night, and that we may gain stronger friendships from this activity. And this we say in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Councilwoman?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's get to the business of the meeting. We have 3 public hearings tonight. We have a public hearing on the concessionaire agreement and fee waiver. We have a public hearing on the general plan comprehensive update. And we have a public hearing on municipal code amendments, adoption of the wildlife urban interface code and Centerville wildland urban interface map. Okay? So that means that those 3 public hearings, those topics, that you will have an opportunity to comment on those topics when we get to those public hearings. But right now, it's the open session. You needn't comment on any of those because you'll have even more time then to comment. That the open session is where any member of the public can come forth and say what might be on their mind. Trying to keep the interest in mind that we want to keep the meeting moving along. So keep your comments to 2 to 3 minutes if you can. Now, I always, for those of you who may be new at it, I always stress that we have to, by law, put agenda to these meetings in advance. So if you bring up a new topic, we can't go to extensive discussion on it. But many times there are topics that we haven't thought of, or we need to dive in a little farther, that we will talk staff and council. We may get on a further agenda, or we'll try and get back to you with a phone call or something like that. But just so we never want you to feel like, hey, you came and we didn't discuss it, because we have to put these things on agenda 48 hours in advance if we're discussing something in detail. But with that said, other than those 3 topics that you'll have more a chance to talk on, the open session is now open for any public comment. Just maybe state your name so we have that for the record if you're so inclined.
Hi, everyone. Larry Smith, Centerville resident. I can go back in time. I was actually instrumental in getting the open session back on the city agendas back in, I think, 95 timeframe. And also with the school district, getting back the open session, or whatever it's called, in the Davis School District in about 2014. So it's kind of cool that we have open sessions. It seems rather obvious, but there was a period of time in both those entities where we didn't have it. I don't have a lot to say specifically since the general plan discussions are for later. But since I was also, and this is a little tooting my horn a little bit, the first entity that started the city website, thank you very much. I want to compliment whoever did the city website and brought it up, and it said it would be easier to use with your phone. Sure enough, it's good. And it works pretty well, except when it comes to printing stuff out. Those PDFs, like the general plan, that's a lot of paper. And then it's hard to read. So to get to my little bit of a senior status, maybe I'm not quite a senior citizen, but it's nice to have the open session so people can chat and communicate. It's nice to have a good city website. I guess my only comment would be the sound system. Not that I'm going deaf, but it's a little hard to hear. So I don't know if we should recommend a sound specialist to come in and modify maybe a filter or two, or maybe some of the speakers, but it's a little tough to hear at times. I'll leave my comments I'm actually going against my protocol of never standing up during an open session, even though I help get them on there. I kind of like to stay away from getting too verbose. But anyway, thanks for all you do, and looking forward to hearing the discussion on the general plan, since I reviewed many of them over the years, including the early one in '92 or whenever it was created. And so it's good to have some discussion on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. So everybody speak up. Can't fix our sound system right tonight, but speak up. Anybody else on the open session?
Mayor, can I just make a comment? We've recognized another great human being, Chief Stewart, here tonight. Larry Smith just lost his beloved wife a few weeks ago. And we had the fire department, the first responders, when she was moved from the transport vehicle that brought her from the care facility to her home so that she could pass away in peace at home with her family. It was like an honor guard, having our first responders there and attending to that. And Larry, we extend our condolences and our appreciation and love for you and your dear sweet Kim for being such honorable and exemplar residents of Centerville.
I really appreciate that, Rick. Councilman Bangeter, that was a profound moment driving up the street. Sorry I'm coming back, but I guess I had to say something in that context. I got a text from my son that the emergency team was there, and I didn't know what to expect. I was worried about everything in that context, but when I drove up the street, I saw two emergency vehicles. My neighbors were a little bit flummoxed, including the 12-year-old boy across the street was looking up and down the street, going, what is happening at the Smith house? But when I opened up the door and then looked at those yeah, it was like an honor guard right in the back of the vehicle, standing strong and tall. I got to meet the chief, I believe that's the name, and they did their job, and thanks a lot to them, whoever they might be. I got a picture of them, so it's a memory that I have not only in my head, but I can look back at it. Very profound. So thank you very much to whoever who is in charge of that, and extend my gratefulness to them, if you could, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry for your loss again. Larry comes from great stock. Before we moved to Centerville, we lived 8.5 years in Bountiful, and we were 4 doors down from his father, who was an amazing man. Great family, great contributors to our community. All right, anybody else on the open session? All right, let's go to our first public hearing. This is the concessionaire agreement and fee waiver for the UU conference down at our community park. Is that Lisa? Or is it Haley? Haley, it looks like. Sorry, I got to move ahead on my agenda. Haley.
Yes, thank you. This is to review the agreement. Last year, we entered into this agreement with the Ute Conference Football to provide concessions for our spring baseball league. And it went very well, and I have actually invited them here tonight. But this is basically for you guys to review the fee structure for them using that concessions, which last year we charged them $1, and this year we are looking at a fee waiver for that. But I did just want to have them come up and present just a little bit on their success this season, if you don't mind. This is April Nilsson and Steph Jensen.
Jenny Nilsson, sorry. Oh. You're fine.
We are excited to just kind of briefly cover how successful concessions were last year. We were able to use this as a fundraiser for our football players that all reside within the Viewmont High School District, so the majority of them are in Centerville. We allowed parents and players of a certain age to come work the concessions, and they were paid an hourly wage, basically, and the money that they earned was put towards the registration fees. And we were able to completely cover the registration fees of 9 football players. And then we had some that didn't completely cover their fees, but a good chunk was taken off. And while 9 may not seem like a huge number, we're one of the smallest districts in the Ute Conference. The majority of the players and parents that took advantage of this opportunity, either their children would not have been able to pay or play, or we had one family that had 3 or 4 kids playing, and so you times our registration fee by 4, and that's huge. So as a conference or as a district, we didn't take any money. We simply provided the concessions. We made our money back, and then everything was given back to those in our community that helped run it, and it was very successful.
Great.
I will add that I had compliments from the community because, for a while we didn't have it open. And what's going to the ball game without a concession stand? That's the only reason the brothers and sisters go. So to have that bustling was wonderful. And these girls did an amazing job. Steph is making pulled pork sandwiches over there. And they've gone above and beyond. It's amazing. And I can't tell them thank you enough for bringing our park alive over there, because they really did help to do that.
Well, and it actually, just so you know, it does give the boys an added love of playing because they worked for it. And so it honestly was kind of cool to see the families come in and all support the one kid on the team that, in their family that would be playing, or in the one family that had 3. It just, it made them work for it. And that, it wasn't just like a handout. They actually had to put forth an effort. And so I think it just, I don't know, it was very good for everybody. And we have a long list of people that want to do it. We're hoping we can accommodate everybody now, because it does help out a lot of families. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, when we were running the concession ourselves, we were having to pay staff on purchasing product. And so we were running at a deficit for the city, and we thought, let's come up with a solution where we're not subsidizing that anymore. And now we're able to give back to our own community who uses our facilities for their games. So yeah, do you have any questions?
Do you have one?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, there is not anything I don't love about this program. I think it's great for the city. I think it's really great that that you guys are able to provide opportunities for kids to play football. But I do have one question. Did anyone approach you or the city and say, hey, why not us? I just want to make sure that we're not, I guess, prioritizing one group over another.
Nope.
Okay,
We
great.
haven't had any other interest.
Hey, that's great.
It's really hard finding anybody to take on that potential.
It's a big responsibility.
It's a huge cost, and when you have
Yeah.
volunteers, it's a great partnership.
Okay.
We tried to find, we couldn't find anybody for a couple of years, so
Well, I agree with Rob.
found some
There's-
suckers to take it on, so.
Yeah, there's energy in the park when there's
you.
treats available, so it's really wonderful for a lot of reasons.
It really is awesome. It's a great partnership.
Yeah.
Lisa, can I just ask, is there any problem with precedent where we're not charging anything? Is that there, I mean, I'm totally supportive too, but is there anything we should be worried about that way?
Yeah, I think that we have noticed this as a public hearing tonight. There is a statute, we call it the 1082, which talks about how municipalities, we're a fiduciary with the public's money. And so if we are going to donate money, then we need to have a public hearing. And they've made some amendments recently to the statute that make it clear for this kind of situation where we're waiving fees for a nonprofit. We just have to have the public hearing. We don't have to comply with a lot of the other requirements. So I think, and also given the history that we have tried to rent this out and that this is a win-win, again, so I think there is some consideration in the contract for us because the city is getting services provided for the baseball program as well as, providing this. So I think in this situation that it's really just having a public hearing, seeing if anybody's opposed to the use of our funds for that way. Again, last year, we just charged $1, but I think this year, we're suggesting we have that public hearing so we can comply with the 1082.
Okay, great. With that then, since Lisa says we should do a public hearing on it, we'll go into the public hearing portion. So the public hearing for the concessionaire agreement and fee waiver with the Ute Conference is now open. If you're inclined to comment, once again, state your name for the record. Anybody online?
We have Dell online, but I don't think he wants to.
Okay. Seeing no comments from the public on that, I will close that public hearing, and we'll bring it back to, I don't believe council had any more questions, but if you did, is there any more questions for the applicant or for our staff at all before I look for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the concessionaire agreement with the Ute Conference Incorporated for the use of the concession facilities at Community Park for the spring 2026 baseball season for purposes of raising funds for the Viewmont Little League football program and approve the fee waiver after the successful completion of the public hearing.
I'll
pursuant to
second that.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Let's vote. Councilman Meekum.
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously, 5-0. Thank you. Thank you for keeping our people happy with food as they watch their little ones play ball, so appreciate it. All right, let's go to item number 2. This is probably what many of you are here for. This is going to be a public hearing on the general plan. We're going to call up Mike Eggett, and he has a guest with him as well, too. I'm going to let him introduce rather than going into a big, long update of it. But basically, we're redoing our general plan. It's been quite a few years, and it's gone through Planning Commission. After many times of them hearing it, it's come forward to us. And this is not the last discussion we'll have on it. This is actually our first after Planning Commission approved it. I mean, we talked about doing it months and months ago, years ago. I just we wanted to have this public hearing first any comments from the public before we go into the further deliberations. So with that, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to give a brief history, I won't go over all the details. So there's a larger summary in the council packet. The public can look at it. But the city's engagement with SOMA started in June of 2024, where they did the commencement of their process to get research and talk to key stakeholders and learn more about the community. Since that time, they continued to work with staff and members of the city to prepare for public engagement opportunities that took place during the fall into, excuse me, the winter of 2024. And then in 2025, there was an open house that was provided to the public in January. And then there was a mailer that went out in April to all the residents, a survey mailer to receive feedback from the public. And that documentation came back and then was provided to the contract group SOMAS. Following that, SOMAS, through Chris Hupp, who is the lead agent of their company, took all that information, compiled it, and continued working on a draft comprehensive general plan update document. He continued to work with city staff, multiple different department heads and leaders, as well as community development, in putting together the document. And then the final draft version of that document was prepared and ready to go to the Planning Commission on October 22nd with the public hearing element. That meeting for the Planning Commission first review was scheduled, and the public hearing did occur on October 22nd, wherein the Planning Commission accepted comments from the public as well as deliberated amongst themselves on the first draft. I believe at that same meeting, Chris did do a presentation to the Planning Commission, that first review presentation, for them to learn more about the final document, or at least the draft document at that time, and to deliberate upon it. At the conclusion of their discussion and following the public hearing, the Planning Commission did continue the public hearing on that item to November 12th. During the November 12th meeting, they did hold that second public hearing, and I will go back and say that the guidance was for staff to explicitly state that written commentary could be provided, and it should be provided if members of the public had written comments they would like to share. We did receive written commentary that was included in the packet for the November 12th meeting, and the Planning Commission reviewed that information, as well as held another public hearing to receive further commentary. And at the conclusion of that discussion, they made a motion to table the matter for another future discussion and scheduled that discussion for December 10th. They also afforded more time for the public to provide written commentary up to the date of the packet creation. That was the Friday before the December 10th meeting. At the December 10th meeting, there was not a public hearing. There was just a meeting wherein they reviewed all the public commentary that had been provided to them and the general plan, and then worked through the information that was before them. The ultimate conclusion of that discussion was that the Planning Commission made a recommendation for City Council consideration, or a favorable recommendation to the City Council for the comprehensive draft document, general plan document, with the understanding that there was a list of items that they felt needed to be further evaluated, topics of discussion. Those 8 items are identified in the minutes that are attached in the packet. And then also with guidance that the staff work on any Scrivener's errors that had been identified or would be identified prior to it going to City Council, as well as a substantive error regarding an active transportation plan that has not been adopted by the city. Those changes were made, the document was updated, and the most recent documentation we received from SOMAS was on January 15th, and that is the version of the document found in the packet. I will note that with the document that's found in the packet, there are 2 alternative versions of pages 51 and 52 relative to moderate income housing strategies that could be evaluated. As I discussed the Planning Commission findings with Mr. Hupp, and also some comments I'd received from the public relative to that. What you'll see in your packet are the main updated document, that is the January 15th version, those alternative pages, the comments that were provided to the city up to November 12th in advance of the meeting with the Planning Commission, And then comments that were provided up to December 4th that were provided in advance of the December meeting with the Planning Commission. And then there was a commentary provided on December 8th that was also included in the packet by a resident of the community. And then you'll see the notice information and then the Planning Commission minutes. I will also note that this meeting tonight, we had a public hearing scheduled for it, and we met state and city requirements for that. And as part of that, we did receive a public comment packet that had been provided by a resident and had been emailed yesterday to the council and the mayor, as well as city staff, and the city recorder has received that email as well. So that is there on the record. With that, I will just note real quick an introduction to Mr. Chris Hupp, who's sitting here, who will take my place in a moment, or you can come up, Chris, if you'd like. Chris Hupp does, as I know, works for SOMAS and has helped multiple cities with planning elements, general plans, code updates, as well as private sector projects. One notably that he evidenced in the work session is the Station Park project in Farmington. He continues to help that group with that. So Chris does have multiple years of experience in this industry doing that. And I will also note that he is a board member of APA Utah, which is the American Planning Association Utah chapter. So he does have a pulse of a lot of things that are going on with state legislative updates, and even this most recent session, which I'm sure planner to planner, he and I may have further discussions about and what those implications are, because there may be some impacts to moderate income housing discussions and other items that we may have to look at. So I believe that that's everything on this item as an introduction, and I will turn it over to you, Chris, if you'd like to take it from here.
Okay.
And I'll be available for questions. I'll just sit here.
Excellent. Can we pull up just those first 3 slides? So go to there we go. This is the jitter plan overview, just our timeline. We've already addressed some of that. I don't need to go into depth here. This is also the same timeline that we presented at the Planning Commission back in October, but the general scope and schedule that we took for this this process to date. You'll notice the orange ones are the public open houses where we had specific in-person events, and then there's some other mailers and other things that happen throughout the process. In addition to that, the drafting of the elements started in February 2025 as far as starting some of the pieces, for example, transportation, the other like open space, as we went through that. And then we had that additional survey that went out to every resident in the city in March 2025, and then we incorporated that feedback and adjusted the elements as we continue to go through. So there, again, very brief overview of the timeline. Slide. Here are the vision and goals. So these vision and goals were refined over 3 in-person events and the mailer and 2 online surveys. As we went through this, our first version of this actually excluded, you'll notice the item 3, create, maintain, improve city parks. That was actually not in the original survey, but we had so many write-ins that it became part of the survey and then was voted on so much that it became one of the top 3 priorities as far as vision and goal for the city. These were all ranked by residents of the city and then prioritized by votes that they received. So first and foremost, and I don't think anyone wouldn't agree with this main priority, is maintain Centerville's culture and quality of life. We want to keep Centerville. And so that was the number 1 thing. Number 2 that we heard from residents was preserve the hillside for open space, meaning let's not develop, let's not build this out, keep it open space, keep it recreation use. We don't want houses and things up the hillside. The third item, again, as mentioned before, is create, maintain, and improve the city park. So there's specific items and things that were delineated in those public engagement events that residents wanted to be part of the park system, and we've notated those. And then the fourth item, this actually came out in a few different versions. The question, it kept being refined. The last 3 survey responses had the option as part of the questions where no development, and then the other 4 options had some version of a change to the development. and I can touch on that, but over 80% said we want something changed on Main Street. We don't want it to stay as is. But it became a heavy priority as far as beautification. When you drive into Centerville, knowing the difference between Bountiful, Centerville, Farmington, Centerville, there's no transition when you cross the city boundary. And so creating that sense of place further so that when people come in, they can see and feel the difference. And then to round out the top 5 is create a plan for the west side. So there are state mandates, there are state things that need to happen. There's the wetlands that exist on that west side. And so there's a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot of challenges, and creating a plan for that west side became one of the top priorities as heard from residents. And so as we went through this, those were the top priorities. Again, you'll see they're rounded out to the 10. Dining early on, sit-down restaurants was one of our tops. It dropped as time went on, but it still made the top 10. And so there's a few different items on that list that made it into those top 10s as far as residents and a cumulative review of the surveys and things that were made. If we can go to this next slide. So these are the 7 general plan elements. You'll notice I put on the left the 7 elements and the primary driver for these elements. Land use, transportation, and housing are state required elements. You have to have them as every general plan. Open space and recreation is not a requirement, but is public desire. And so we've included that to that desire. Public facilities matches that as well. 2 specific items that we heard multiple times, a cemetery and schools. Just for clarification, city council and the city doesn't distinguish if schools are happening. That's the school district. You can help facilitate some of that use by giving data and projections of what will happen in the city, but that's a school district maintained thing. But we do address all public facilities as part of that element. Conservation, preservation, it's a state requirement in that you need to have a water element, and we incorporate the water element into the conservation and preservation element. And then economic development, there's some opportunities for, there's a term called leakage, which means if I have $100 and I'm a resident, am I spending all $100 in the city, or is some of that money leaking to a different city? That's essentially what that means. There's some significant linkage that we wanted to look at. Overall, the city's doing well. It's a 151% as far as, I'm going to use another term, capture rate, meaning how much of that $100 you're capturing from every resident is actually staying in the city versus going somewhere else. And so you're over that 100%, meaning that, and then some are actually coming into the city to spend their dollars. So that's a good piece. And that's sort of the general overview that we'll touch on before we open up to that's this initial presentation.
All right, well, what we're going to do now is, I think the council's going to have some questions for Chris and Mike. Maybe it'll help the public answer some of your questions, and what you don't get answered, then we'll have the public here where you can come up as well too. I just want to ask Chris a little curiosity question first. We got 419 on the mail-out response that we did, and that's when the council stepped back and said, we want to give the people more time. They authorized more funds to do a mail-out because not everybody is on email. So we got 419 responses there. How many responses overall at Christmas parties, at 4th of July parties? How many residents do you think you've talked with? I mean, we know 419 for sure, so I'm not going to hold you to anything.
It was over 10% of the population.
Okay. So over 10% of our population, 16,500, 17,000. Who's our perfect on how many people we have living?
Who's got the calculator?
16 or 17,000.
Okay. So realizing that they're not all here tonight, I appreciate everybody's here tonight, but people have put their input as well too. We wish 1,600 people would be here tonight, or at least the 419, but So I'm just urging council that as we deliberate over the next few weeks on this, that we remember that we have had response from all those people. And remember in our representation of the public as a whole, that we remember all those people that have put their comments in. So I just wanted to start it out by that, to realize that we have had quite a bit of involvement. They're not all here at this meeting, but we've had some great input in the period of almost 2 years. So with that said, council, what questions do you have for Chris, if any?
Chris, we have had a few comments. One of them was related to water, just specifically. I just wanted to ask you, it seems like it might be helpful to reference our master plans. Is that a typical best practice in a general plan?
Yes.
Okay. I think that would be helpful because some of that information is very detailed in the master plan. Like, for example, the water plan goes out 40 years on water supply. It doesn't
Right.
just go 20. So I think that those types of things might be, attach the Parks and Rec master plan that our parks. All of those, some of those have not been adopted by the city council and would have to be. But I think that those are critical in just broadening, where you may find other resources.
Yeah, where the legislature is going is to require more in the general plan. To date, it's a little bit looser as far as you're supposed to consult the DNR, and you're supposed to consult water consultant or the water conservancy districts. That's generally the requirement. Outside of that, you need to have a water element that talks about land use and how you're minimizing consumption, meaning the usage of water. That's generally what a general plan needs to do. Now, with that being said, the direction that they are going is to use the water resource plans that are being established in each of the cities and integrate that into the general plan so that it's more prominent. But I'm going to use this on purpose because it's funny, a watered down version of it.
That was cool, clever. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we had, because that is part of the state required part of the general plan, I wanted to make sure that we had effectively covered that. It seemed to me that we have, but maybe just referencing that.
Yeah, as far as requirements today, we technically meet all of those. We can
Okay.
add a few items to help further demonstrate that water or the water conservation plan.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, we talked earlier about fizz. Where a lot of the people are really concerned about that being in our general plan.
Right.
Is that something that you feel like we need to leave in the general plan?
No. And let me clarify that answer a little bit. The general plan, the moderate income housing pieces of the general plan, you are required to have 3. We're showing 5. And the reason we're showing 5 is because when you show 5, you get priority funding. So if all cities are equal, nobody submits any, no one gets funding. If you submit 3, you get funding or have the potential to get funding. If you submit 5, you actually go to this upper echelon of priority funding, meaning before the general cities that only had 3. So by doing those 5, you're actually putting yourself in a different bracket, a closer bracket, more priority to get funding. That being said, those 5 elements, we propose specific items that could help based on the vision that we've already talked about. It does not need to be those 5. The city can choose which 5 or if you don't want priority funding, if you want to be second tier, you can choose 3. I would propose going with the 5 because at the very least, if you hit 3 of them, you still get funding. If you make moves to do the 5, you can get better opportunities for that funding. But it doesn't need to be fizz, it doesn't need to be hops, it doesn't need to be any of these specifics. That's up to the city and the vision of the residents.
And so these are not the ones the council has picked. These are just ones that you
These are proposed 5.
as placeholders.
Correct.
we need to talk about that and pick which 5 we would like to be.
Yeah, there's several of the ones that are already in that plan were utilized in the past, and so there's some tradition already there in reporting. And God bless planners, city planners, because the amount of recording that they have to do or reporting that they have to do, thanks to our wonderful state legislature, is a lot. So keeping some of that tradition is helpful, but Fizz is a newer one. Since we originally proposed that, new discussions have happened where there could be a significant amount of work to go into establishing a Fizz. So that may be one that we transition off of that 5, just for reference. Hopefully that helps.
Chris, I'm newer to the council. Were those 5 identified by a previous council, or did they come from you?
So those 5, parts of them came from the previous reports that had been done. There were, so we have Zions Bank Public Finance as one of our sub-consultants as our consultant team. Susie Becker has been doing this for longer than I've been alive, almost. So they're the group that actually proposed these. They're highly related to the legislature and understand a lot of what's happening. And so that was the original proposal.
Okay, that leads me into my next question, a little more intense, Chris. As you know, Centerville is very unique. You've worked with a lot of different cities.
Mm-hmm.
And we're about built out on the east side.
Correct.
And we have opportunity on the west side, which I think everybody is anxious for and looking towards. In identified as priorities on the elements, and you've mentioned that priority in this city was small town character and culture and feel. And it's strikingly evident that in the plan there is a tremendous amount of emphasis on housing and on density and on land use. And in fact, a little word search, 5 times in the 100 and how many pages are there in the plan total? Small town character or feel is mentioned, and 252 times. Density-related issues are talked about, mandates from the state talked about. We all know the pressure from there.
Right.
We're a unique city. We're different than
Right.
other cities, and we appreciate that. And then other development terms, mixed use, multifamily, town center, walkable. 252, that's a ratio of 1 to 50. The feel in reading and reviewing extensively the document is it is heavily centered on, which was clear down to number 7 on the priorities, and very little emphasis put on number 1 priority. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. And I would most likely guess, because I don't have the document in front of me, clearly, most of those references are found in the moderate income housing. And the reason why is because state mandates specific things, and they use the D word. I don't use the D word. In most cities, it's a curse word. And so moderate income housing, most of those references to density and those types of things are referenced in the moderate income housing. That being said, if you look at the land use element, you look at the map and the discussions that we have on the use of these different product types and things like the attached, detached, and so on. The east side, there are 2 specific changes on land use. They're both greenfield, and what that means is undeveloped agricultural grounds at this point. There's 2 agricultural grounds that we show in the future land use map as detached housing, and that just means it doesn't share a common wall. So if you look at the land use element, it talks heavily about leaving that east side alone. And the map, realistically, and this is a commentary on society everywhere that I've worked. People don't read. It's really sad, but it's reality. So that map shows a lot. Now, with that being said, I work on the development side, I work on the city side. I've worked with so many cities. One of the very first things that I do is I look at a city's general plan. And the first thing that I do is I look at the vision. And the reason why I look at that is because if I look at the vision first and I understand this is their priorities, this is the lens at which they're looking at everything, if I'm trying to argue a specific thing later in the document and it doesn't match the vision, 100 times out of 100 times, that argument will be lost. I know this because I've gone through this. And so you may not know because you're newer, but as I worked with the rest of the council, I love Centerville, and I want to protect Centerville. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what the legislature is doing. And I wrote this, specifically me, to protect Centerville and the values and the things that I've seen here. So I can understand a general search may show 252 items of a word being used. A lot of that's in moderate income housing. A lot of that may fall under mixed use because we talk about mixed use on the west side. But outside of that, in the node 2, I'm going to call it as such, and then I'm going to explain where that is. It's a commercial along Parish. That is commercial and entertainment. We don't talk anything about mixed use. We don't talk anything about density on the east side. Zero mention of that. It's all west side and mixed development. And also, we don't reference vertical mixed use. And I'm going to clarify that so you understand the difference between vertical and horizontal. Horizontal mixed use means I have a commercial building here, and right next to it is a house or an office. That's horizontal. Vertical mixed use means I put a house on top of a commercial building. So that's vertical. We don't mention the vertical mixed use, especially there's already some mixed use along Main Street. And realistically, thank you, my mouth is super dry. We don't mention it at all along Main Street because frankly, if you try to do vertical mixed use, most developers are going to come in and try and go 4 stories bare minimum. You've all been on Main Street. That doesn't belong there, so don't do it. Don't screw it up. And that's why we talk about it that way. We're allowing horizontal and things because it already exists. We're not going to say, sorry, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the restaurant. I actually got a free sandwich from them because I came so many times. Cutler's, thank you. But we don't want to kick existing users out. And so we were very careful how we wrote that so that if a developer would come in, they would not have the fodder to fight it. Hopefully that gives you a sense for it.
Well, Phil. Chris, you understand, we all feel a real responsibility to have the citizens served in every way, financially and in every other way, with those precious tax dollars that have gone to fund this study. And $130,000 is a significant amount of money. And talking again about the uniqueness of the city, I don't know how many cities, especially of this size population, after a presentation like that, there's 144 full pages of public input we had at the, which is more pages than the plan itself. Very specific, some excellent suggestions and some excellent input from some very knowledgeable and commendable citizens in our city. And can you please explain to us, you've put a lot of emphasis on citizen input. Our surveys, tremendously helpful, insightful, and there were some public comments about maybe the way some of those were worded and leading and those things. I understand there's going to be challenges and complaints about lots of things, and, but that's been a real emphasis to get to where you draft a plan. So then we get a written draft of the plan. And the Planning Commission, by the way, and I want to clarify, Mike mentioned a little earlier that Planning Commission reviewed it extensively. They only had the majority of the public input, the 100 and something pages, for a few days before they then reviewed it. And the sentiment of the Planning Commission, I sat in every one of those meetings and listened to every presentation you made, and that the Planning Commission discussed this. And they identified that they preferred the city council look extensively at the public comment and review the input from the excellent people we had who presented.
Right.
So-
Can I interject just momentarily? So here's the thing. I love residents. I've spoken with a lot of residents. I've read all of that. And as a side note.
You've
I-
read all 60,
Let him
157
finish.
pages?
Let him
Okay.
finish.
I just want to clarify.
Yes, I did. I donated nearly 200 hours of my personal time that I did not charge to this project. Realistically, $130,000 is a significant amount of money, but most general plans are significantly more expensive than that. Just so you know. I've dealt with a lot of cities, and I love Centerville, and that's why I was willing to donate that time, to read through those comments. That being said, I'm gonna put a pin in that, and I'm gonna come back to it. When you go through a general plan process, and you go through all this public engagement, what's more important? Looking at the mass body that you put together, or the write-in information? And I'm gonna clarify this comment. When you look at poll statistics, when you look at mail-in votes, when you look in mailers that get sent out, the vast majority of the people that respond to that are a very specific demographic. It's not a nice framed view of the entire public. So do you want to look at only the upper echelon, or do you want to look at everyone? And that's the difficulty I have with putting undue pressure on just this upper echelon of information that came in. I want to look at everyone in the city. I want to include everyone, not just a certain portion. And that's what hurts me when I hear some of the things like that. Like just being honest and personal here. That's what hurts me. Because we went through extensive research and extensive public engagement. And something that's very interesting, 2% is statistically valid, meaning 2% of the population. And realistically, in most cities, they get about 1.5% to 2% of the population saying something, because there's so much lethargic nature to the way that people respond to things nowadays. So that we have to get innovative in how we approach the people and get a true snapshot of everyone. And so that's what we did. So to throw away all that public engagement for the people that, and it's no offense to anyone in this room, but typically the people that come to these meetings don't have an issue with it. They're fine with it. And they gave their feedback when they wanted to. And they're usually a certain demographic of the city, which is a wealthier group. Hands down.
Okay, so did you make any changes to?
Oh my goodness, did I make any changes? Yes, a lot.
I think Rob might have, this is why I tried to bring up that 419 people responded to surveys, and you probably potentially met with 1,600 people. So we want to listen, we want to hear everybody.
Right.
Councilman Meekum, did you have something, or is Councilwoman Hurst up? I thought you may have
My
another
other question was, we've spent a lot of time on our foothills plan.
Yeah.
Can that be attached to this general plan?
As like an appendix and referenced in the document? Yeah.
That it's accepted to be part of it when somebody's looking, I mean, I was not on the council, but they spent years and years on it, and I feel like it really has some great protection of our foothills, a little more than what this general plan has. So can we just kind of incorporate that into this general plan?
I can't make that decision. That's your
Right.
decision. So,
Right.
yes, it can be incorporated, but that's not on me. That's this body.
Okay.
Can I
You-
ask it?
Do you feel left out, Mike? You can engage too,
I
because
can
you've been in
scooch
this whole
over.
thing,
I think
so.
he's doing a fantastic
Okay.
job here.
Let's go, let Councilman Hurst go, then Councilman Plummer, you can go.
Chris, just to clarify, the 10 goals listed on page 11 and 12, those were determined by the surveys that you ran. This ordering of these goals, just to be clear to the council, is residential input. The first 5 were very clear. What mattered to residents seemed to be across the board pretty statistically. I think there is importance in recognizing that that's what it is, but also with that, the housing is number 7, but it's also state required.
Right.
That modern income housing element has to be in there.
It wasn't always the case, but yes, it's a must, and the state has been adding and adding and adding pressure. This new legislative update may soften that a little bit. They're pivoting because they lost their housing czar sub. That's their appointed name, not mine. They lost that individual, and so they've made some pivots in this last legislative update that they've just finished up. And so we're waiting to see how some of those things unfold, but some of that pressure may be released a little bit, but not a lot. The pressure, like the thumb, is still being pushed heavily.
Yeah. I still think it's important to note that the housing, some of the comments that I've heard just in the open houses and other things is that people are wanting, it's family-centered housing, which doesn't always necessarily mean just single-family detached housing options. It depends on where you're at in life. Older people complain to me that there are not retirement housing options. Obviously, we have younger families too. Can you provide any, when you get statistics like we have in this, the statistics are telling to me, the 418, you get to 400 and you've got a pretty statistically stable plus or minus 5% margin of error.
Right.
Do you see that with other cities? How are we ranking with statistics? We also had some very high percentages, 83.5% that looked at moderate income housing on the west side. How did those statistics, what did they say to you?
I mean, it's pretty obvious when it's that skewed one direction that it's needed. And again, the point is it's not needed everywhere. We even had this discussion, and all the counselor, well, sorry, you weren't there at the time, but the rest of the council was there, and we had this discussion of, do we leave it complete on the west side because that's what residents have said, or is there pockets that make sense on the east side?
Okay.
And as a body, we came together generally and said, don't put it on the east side, put it on the west side. So
Can that make for, I guess I'm just trying to understand the data that we received versus, state requirements, trying to put these all together. Can we make flourishing neighborhoods on the west side with that type of plan?
yes.
Okay.
And so currently, when we spoke with residents on the west side, and even residents on the east side were like, wait, we have a west side? I was a little shocked by that. I-15 makes sense. It's a big dam blocking the east and the west. I understand that. But there was a sense on the west side that they're not integrated with the east side. And the reason is because it's essentially a few spots, and then they're surrounded by industrial. In order to make them feel part of the community, you add more community, which means a commercial and residents and other things like that to add to that community so that it can feel more a part of something as opposed to, yeah, we're forgotten.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Plummer?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've got a few technical questions and a couple of other questions regarding the plan. Does the city have the edible source file for this general plan?
Not the most recent version. We sent the previous, but we didn't send the most recent version, but
Are there
that's part of.
proprietary limitations to that?
No. We already sent the previous version. We just haven't sent the most
So
recent because.
What
yeah.
format is that in?
So the original format is designed in InDesign. It's an Adobe Creative Suite product, but historically, we'll give, the InDesign will give the PDF, and we'll give a Word version
Okay.
of those documents so they can be edited.
Great, thank you.
Because, again, something could change 50 years, 10 years down the road, like
There-
COVID. Nobody knew that was happening, so.
Right, there may be opportunities in the
For sure.
future to amend it, is what we'll be looking at. Okay, so, first off, I do want to say thank you to you and your team. Done, and you provided a good framework for us to start from moving forward here, I think. Is there any thoughts on the Pages Lane where the DI was? Let me just finish up my kind of long question here. I don't remember seeing really a lot of information on that area. And it looks like on the map that it's staying the same, but that to me is maybe unrealistic. So I was wondering if you had any conversations with the church in that regard, as they're the main property owners in that area. Also, is there any thoughts or how a large residential development on the west side would affect the current political climate of the city? If we added a large group of people onto the west side, how is that, do we need to take that into consideration as we look at higher density, the D word, but it will be most likely higher density than what we have on the east side. How would we want to mitigate some of those challenges with a number of new residents coming in to the city?
As far as voting on council, or?
As far as how that might affect the political balance of our city as it currently is.
Yeah, and tell me if I miss generally the sense, but typically and traditionally, if you look at councils across Utah, the whole nation really, the individuals that run for council and are typically in a, how do I put this delicately, they're a little bit more well-off than others. They're usually in the middle to upper range. So adding more affordable type product, you probably won't see anyone sitting here from that group. That's not to say that it wouldn't happen, it's just, it typically doesn't happen. So as far as council is concerned, which is essentially the buck stops here, that wouldn't change much historically looking at cities. That being said, the voting may change, but you don't run on a political party. So if you get more intense, maybe there's a shift, but generally the culture in Utah is a certain way. And so I don't foresee a massive change in the character of the city based on what's being proposed on the west side. Most of it's commercial. There is some additional residential, but as it was mentioned, and there's some individuals in the audience today that we've spoken to that specifically mentioned this is something that we missed early on. After the first, we didn't really hear about senior housing, but I've heard from residents in the congregation, I say congregation, but audience, you know what I mean? The audience about, well, that's a miss. You need to add this in. And so we added some of those components into it. So there's a significant component that could happen on that west side for senior housing as well. So, which wouldn't change the demographic. It just gives a place for the people to grow old in. Because in most cities that don't think about that, they kick their residents out. And I'm a product of that. My wife was born in Sandy, Utah. We lived in Sandy when we were first married. And at a certain point, seriously got kicked out of the city because there's nowhere for us to live. There's nothing that we could afford there, so we moved. We had to. We got kicked out of the city because of that affordability issue. And that is what we heard from residents. We got nowhere to go. Or I'm getting into my older years and I can't live in my house anymore. I can't take care of a yard. I need a place and there's nowhere here. So that's going to be part of that component. So realistically, I do not think it will shift the political climate of the city significantly.
And the Pages Lane. Thank you for that.
Yeah, Pages Lane, again, to the east side, we were told, leave it alone. So we essentially left it alone. Like, we have infill on our targeted areas and things like that for the commercial so that we can increase the tax base. But generally, we love it the way that it is. Leave it alone. Trying to do that.
All right. Did you have any? Were you the one with
I
the-
actually did. Chris, you were just asked how the West Side development would impact the political makeup of the city, and there was a specific reference made to higher density, which I have to assume that the unstated concern there is that higher density will result in more lower income residents who will skew more liberal. I assume that that's the basis for that question. In your view, as an experienced planner, as a member of the APA board, is it appropriate for a city to make general planning decisions based on how it will impact political demographics?
No, it's not. No, like, you need a place for everyone. I want a place for my kids to live. They will not be able to, when they first get married or when they first move out, be able to afford what I have. They just won't. And we've all lived in something that isn't what we live in now. You had to start somewhere. And I know people think, well, just get a single-family home. You can afford it. No, they can't. New single-family homes are ridiculous. Your home might be X price, but a new one is at least $200,000 more. It's rough.
Thank you.
Based on those last two comments, I grew up, I don't know if this is relevant. Yeah, I think it's relevant. I grew up in the Mill Creek Holiday area. It was a wonderful, wonderful area. When you talk about political and religious, it's completely different now than what it was, okay? My wife is more conservative than I am probably, and she grew up in Alabama and St. George. We moved to Centerville. We've tried to integrate. We've been here a lot of years and be what Centerville people are. We've loved Centerville, okay? But as cities are closer to Salt Lake and that sort of thing, and as people age, I saw it in the Mill Creek Holiday area. People from the outside come in and they may not be of your same political and religious belief, and your homes get bought. I don't know how you stop that, even if you put in just single-family homes everywhere, you know?
Well, and the incredible trend that you're sort of referencing as well happened in a really rapid pace after 2020, where Utahns who grew up in Utah left Salt Lake because it was expensive and they went elsewhere. And then we had thousands and thousands of people come from California and New York and Texas and Midwest and all over the place. It adds diversity, it adds character, it adds understanding. The culture of Salt Lake County is not the same it was 4 years ago. Is that a bad thing? No. Is it a good thing? No. It's a thing.
It's the reality of where we live, and if we continue to tout we have the best economy for the last 18 years, and we want a great economy, we're going to attract people here. Outside of, and your kids, our kids, if you want them to stay here, they got to have a job, okay? And so you have to have a decent economy. Heavens knows we don't want some major catastrophe, some nuclear fallout or something else that makes our land undesirable, and none of us can live here. So it's growth brings challenges.
Right.
And I love single-family homes as well too, but it brings challenges. And what we're getting from the state, that last slide beforehand, I mean, I often tell my clients, I'm a tax practitioner. I often tell them there's black and white with the IRS. There's gray in the middle that we can be aggressive or conservative as you want, but we have to obey the law. So there's laws that come from the state, and this past session, maybe because we lost our housing czar, the league wants to say it's because they've been doing more promoting. Maybe it's both, okay? We haven't been interfered with as much land use-wise, but they've tried to hit us property tax-wise pretty hard. We have to obey the law unless we're going to secede from the union and declare our own independence, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe we can be aggressive in some areas, but there's other areas that's black and white that we have to follow in some of these housing plans that we're getting. And that's why I've constantly put in mayor's messages. We continue to battle from for what laws the state's putting upon us. But it's reality. It is there, and we continue to battle. And I've often said to residents, if you don't like some of these changes from the housing standpoint, you need to be hitting your representatives a lot harder than you need to be hitting us. Because it's not us that's setting those. And so that's just a comment I want to make too before we open it to a public hearing as well.
I want to add one thing to that as well. Up until 2021, the growth in Utah was the vast majority of births, not in migration. People were moving in, but not at the rate that childbirths were happening. So most of the problem is our own fault.
It is. Our kids aren't having kids. I mean, if we want to start getting into it, you know, I mean, they're not generating the amount of births that they used to, you know, and so we have to have some in-migration to help take care of our service needs, take care of an aging population.
And the greatest state secret is out. Everyone loves coming to Utah because it's beautiful, and we've got all these opportunities and these recreation things. Great.
Yeah.
It brings challenges, but opportunities. It's job security for everyone in the room.
So, Council, I'm sure you're going to have some more questions, but the public came as well too. And I think I've given everybody a chance to say something. So we are going to go to the public hearing portion of this. This is a public hearing on the general plan comprehensive update. I do want to make note so y'all know that we received from Mike Eggett and Chris Hupp, we received messages that and notes of your changes to the general plan. And when I say we, the council received them all, and they have them, and these will be discussed at further work sessions and gatherings, okay? And I want anybody to comment that wants to comment, but I'm just telling you that for those of you that are here that are named Cammie Layton, Craig Preston, Dave and Sherry Layton, Nancy Smith, Richard Layton, Tammy Bryson, and Heather Taylor from she was representing the tree board. If you've given those notes that you've given to us, or you gave the planning commission, they have come to us. So you can comment on those again if you want, but you don't need to. We have those. If you're concerned, we don't have them, and the council all has them. So those are in our possession. But you know, well, anybody's welcome to comment. But I just wanted you to know beforehand that those that we do have those. And so, with that said, the public hearing is now open on the general plan comprehensive update. State your name, please, for the record.
And Mayor, can I make a quick request that if they are willing, anybody that comes up, would they just mention if they responded to one of the surveys and which ones they did respond to? If you want to. You're not required to do that. That's not a requirement to speak, but if you want to. Thank you.
Good evening, Dave Layton. I was on his list. I was also at the meeting earlier, the public, the other meeting work session, one of those that participated in the planning commission meetings. I've attended a lot of those and spent some time with those members of the planning commission, thank you for hearing us and knowing also that we are interested in Centerville. It's Centerville, not Centerville. I only ask that you thoroughly review the comments that are given by the citizens. There's a lot of time and a lot of effort put into those. Thank you to Leroy Patterson, the sub-chair of the planning committee.
It's Lorraine Patterson. Lorraine Patterson.
Lorraine Patterson, thank you to her.
Not Leroy, Lorraine.
I meant to say Lorraine, sorry. The sub-chair of the planning committee, she passionately recommended that this general plan not pass in the planning commission without notes and without the comments from the citizens. With that, I think it's really important that you consider every word that's been shared. Without her, I think it might have passed the other way. So thank you to her for her making sure that happened. I'm sure that Mr. Huff and his company mean well, and they're professionals at this and better at a lot of what they do than what we do. But we also ask you to consider strongly the words of the citizens of Centerville. I'm okay with my kids living outside of Centerville. I've shared this before. I have kids that live in various parts of Utah, and I'm okay with them not living right in Centerville. It's fine with me. One daughter was living in Kaysville. She wanted to live in Centerville, and she did a downgrade in her home so that she could. Well, I fixed her up, and now she lives in Centerville. And so I think that it's okay if we don't have a place for each one of our children to live in Centerville. Centerville. I even said it wrong. I also, prior to one of the open sessions of the planning committee, I walked my neighborhood and visited 4 or 5 homes of individuals to let them know that there was a general plan, and each one of them didn't know there was a general plan. Somehow they missed the survey or the information. 5 of them didn't know about it, and 5 of them attended the open meeting and made 3 of the 5 made comments. These are people that are not upper class. These are in a common neighborhood. 2 of them are retired. 3 of them have common jobs. These are common people that have a great love for Centerville and want its best. So thank you for your time, and thank you for all you do, and thank you for hearing the words of the citizens.
Thanks, Dave.
And yeah, I did receive the survey. I know the last one I did. I'm not sure I remember seeing the first one. So.
Okay. Thank you for answering.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm Breda Johnson. I live at Williams Lane, so near Porter Lane and 4th West, if that helps you know the area. So a couple comments I wanted to say. First, thank you for engaging a good and responsible service to help plan and map this out. I was very impressed by them, and they were very thoughtful in their approach. So I really appreciate that. I have a bit of a cold. I wanted to be here tonight because I felt it was important. So if my voice is raspy, sorry about that. For context, I'm a transplant from California. I came here in 1999 to go to Utah State. I married a bountiful boy. We lived in Logan in a fixer-upper house, and we moved here to Centerville. We were so lucky to get a house here in Centerville 12 years ago. No, wait, 2012. I can't do math. Yeah, a long time. I have 3 kids. They enjoy our city parks. Even my adult son loves Freedom Hills Parks and plays disc golf. So thank you for prioritizing parks. It is good to have a healthy, active population, to have that area for them to do. So thank you. A couple of things. Based upon my address, you know that Porter Walton homes were very controversial that were built, the townhomes there. I am LDS, and so I attend the Ward House and know that population. I am grateful for those single ladies that live by themselves, that are older, families with young kids that have come in. Because that development came in, the homes that were the home that was torn down next to the church there are $1 million homes being built right there, if you look them up. So townhomes do not devalue the property. They add a great population. We'll say many of those townhomes, they're directors and biotechs, many things, so I'll leave it at that. So I'm very pleased with that. This is lengthy. Again, I want to just say, you know, I have some input from the trails one and a city one that I did very early on. I have not been giving continual comments on that. I'm also a mountain bike coach for Viewmont, so we give back to our community. So please know that people are coming. They love the community. They want to add to it. And just because I grew up out of state doesn't mean I don't love it here. My children are thriving here. My family thrives here. And I want to maintain it and build it responsibly. But growth is coming. You can't prevent it. And if you don't set a plan, as has been done, then it won't be done responsibly. And it will be haphazardly. There'll be lawsuits and expensive things for our city. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Others?
Tyson Creamer. I'm a local Sonoma resident. I've been here for roughly 20 years. I'm a supporter of the plan. I think it was well thought out. I think it's been, a lot of effort's been put into it. One thing I do for work is I travel around the country. I run businesses in communities all across the country. And the one thing I've found is that the communities that don't find ways to evolve and grow and adapt, they're the ones who usually suffer the most and die. And I really don't want to see that in my own community. I love Centerville. I'm an active participant here. I've volunteered at the Centerville Elementary, at the junior high, at high school. I've coached Little League Baseball here. I'm part of the Centerville Parks and Rec. I'm an active participant, and I'm a huge supporter of keeping this a live, vibrant community and hoping that you guys can see that as well. So I just want to put my support towards this community plan. It's great work, and I appreciate all the effort you guys put into it. Thanks.
Thanks, Tyson.
Nancy Smith, Centerville resident. I always feel like I need to on up because we can't hear you. We assume you can't hear us. Thank you, Mayor, council members, for what you are doing. I think and I hope that you will look through the comments that I recently submitted, which pretty much sum up the core issues that I have. With the lens of clarity, I'm just looking for clarity to make the general plan a better product. Because as I went through that, there were quite a few areas that were confusing. And because I have them in the documents, I won't go through all of that, but just to mention a few, for example, as I read in the reinvestment areas that talked about CDA, it specifically shows that. And yet in the context, there is nothing that refers to a CDA. It's only CRAs and other type of developments. That's confusing to me. Also, as was mentioned tonight, it was brought up by the consultant that Main Street, one of the top priorities was to revitalize Main Street. And yet I find it very interesting that in the document, in the reinvestment area, Main Street is deleted. It's not part of it. That confuses me. The other area that I want to point out, and there's a ton, but you have the document, is was mentioned tonight, the value of having color-coded maps, which are great. I love seeing all of that green for attached residential and detached residential. But what bothers me or concerns me is that we do not anywhere in the general plan show base zones. I can look at attached residential, but I don't know what my base zone is. And if a developer were to come before the planning commission and ask for a zone change in attached residential or detached residential, is there anything in the current general plan that would guide that decision? And I would have to say there isn't. Now, maybe those are going to be put in the zoning ordinance and taken out of a general plan. Historically, they've always been in the general plan. So without a policy direction in a general plan, that weakens the possibility of keeping our city what we envision it to be. So those are just a few of the concerns that I have. And I hope that you will take those documents that I submitted, look at them through the lens of, will they help clarify? Will they help understand? And is that actually what we want to have in our city? I thank you for your time, and I appreciate the effort that you will go through as you go through this general plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Andrea Richmond, Centerville. I know the massive amount of time that Nancy has taken to review the general plan, and I know her wisdom and her knowledge, and I just really want you guys to, respect that and make sure that you read what she's actually taken the time to submit, because she took a lot of time to submit that to you guys. And also, I live in the same area as Rita does, and I love where I live, and the Brighton homes down there. I love the people there, and they have been an absolute beautiful thing in our area and in our ward. However, it also has been World War III down there because of the cheap construction that Brighton Homes left them. There's been so many issues down there. So I hope that with this new general plan, and that you entertain quality, that we entertain quality developers who are honest and respect the people for whom they are building for, and that you actually send inspectors to inspect the entire, building instead of just them inspecting one of the condos. That has been such an issue down there, and I feel sorry for the beautiful people. The road is way too small. There's just been so many issues. People have actually moved out with a lot of anger in their hearts because of what Brighton Home has left them. So anyway, that's all I have to say, and I really appreciate your service and also all that you have done. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.
Hello, I'm Brian Richmond. I'm Andrea's husband. We live in Centerville. I have not heard anything about the cemetery. We're full. We need more land for the cemetery. I realize that there's not a lot of land to have for the cemetery, but that's something we need to think about. So thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Now, we're going to give staff a chance to respond, and some of those things, or council, some of those things we'll hit on. So we're taking your comments down. Next.
Dennis Davis, and I really just have a question. You referred to the requirements of the state, I think trying to promote low-cost housing and such. Do they have any, does the state have any power to influence zoning in the city? Or can the city council zone land the way the people want, and the state can't say anything about it, that's a question. Because I think property owners and the city council zoning makes a big difference on how the land ends up being used. So if anybody has a quick answer to that, I don't know.
No, but they continue to try and push hard. There was a bill this year, okay, but, so.
There's usually a bill every day.
They are trying. Yeah, so you want me to?
Sure.
We can go into more detail after your public hearing.
Yeah, we can, because we're writing these questions down, so I hope we get to them, but that's why I answer it generally. We'll get into more detail on it. Others?
I'm gonna read a little bit. Sorry. Good evening, council members. Appreciate your time and the amount of effort and energy that you put into.
Records? Name
I'm
for
getting there.
record?
I'm just saying thank you.
Okay.
For all the work that you're doing.
Okay.
My name's Dallas Johnson. I've lived in Centerville for almost 15 years. I was born and raised in neighboring Bountiful. My father was the mayor of Bountiful for 12 years. I've sat in a lot of these meetings. I recently quit my corporate job and got a job teaching at local junior high over at Bountiful Junior. I spent almost a decade at Centerville Parks coaching one of the young baseball teams. Now, with my wife, I've spent almost 8 years coaching Viewmont's mountain bike team. I love this community. I love being here. I love living here. And I love my family living here. I like the history of this area. I think it's neat. We're in a unique space where there's not a lot of room because of the mountains and the wetlands. We have a small town feel, but we're next to a big town. So there's some challenges that you all face for that. I know sometimes there can be a strong aversion to certain types of growth because of how we feel or how they're named or it was the bad word, density, right? And I get that. I completely understand the desire to protect what we have. I do believe it's important to recognize that thoughtful growth can also strengthen our community. As a parent, I'm perfectly fine if my kids choose to live somewhere else, outside of Centerville. However, I would love for them to have the opportunity to choose to live here if they can. And I would like opportunities for them to have those choices available in the forms of where they live and the types of homes they can choose. It's been brought up a few times, but we have a few areas in our neighborhood, like Brighton Homes and Shayla Park, that are higher density homes that have brought a number of amazing families and people to our area that could not be here otherwise. Younger generations like different kinds of homes. They don't necessarily want the yard. They don't necessarily want the space, but they do want the same kinds of values and community that we have here. And those types of communities offer that to them. I think it should be explored. Growth also means thinking about our amenities that we have. I have an adult child that spends a lot of time dragging me out on the mountain. It spends a lot of time dragging me over to the disc golf course. I've done a lot of running races and a lot of bike races in a lot of the different areas of this town, and I'm super grateful of all the growth that we have there. I hope it continues. And I hope that that is a direction that we'd like to go to provide opportunities for all kinds of individuals to enjoy this unique space that we have. I just want to make sure that the council knows that there are residents, especially younger families, that do support balanced, thoughtful development in growth of different types and sizes, not just single-family homes. We have our issues, like with the cemetery. If some of you have been here long enough, my dad was not kind when he came and talked to you about that. But there are issues that we do need to solve, that we can solve. But there's more than one way to do it, and it's really important that we all, as citizens, do our best to understand that we have different peoples of different ideas, different demographics, different religious ideas, different political affiliations, and they all belong here. Diversity makes us stronger, and I just think it's important that we keep all of that in mind as we continue to listen to all the feedback and all the input and all of our own desires as we put forth this plan. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the long, hard work that you guys do. I know how much you love listening to us talk. I've had a lot of conversations with my dad about it before he passed away. And I thank you for your patience and your understanding for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dallas. And by the way, sorry for your loss in the last year. If you guys never met Joe Johnson, he was a cool dude. He was the best. And you might have said he wasn't kind when he came to talk to us. I wasn't here, but he was a kind guy. He was awesome. So thank you.
Cami Layton, Centerville resident. I have been very excited the last so many months to hear that our Governor Cox has pushed more smaller homes. I think Salt Lake has finally realized that they have overburdened Salt Lake City with townhouses and apartments in these smaller places, and they need that transition now. And so they have been excited, at least from Governor Cox is what I've gotten the feeling from, that the next step is these smaller homes. And so my thing is why can't we be that city for this transition? I met somebody, has it been about a year, getting my new phone. She was from Holiday. She's single. And she said, we're so tired, some of us that are living in these apartments and condos and townhomes. She says, I can afford a home, but I need a smaller home. She does not want to stay in a condo or a townhome type complex. And some of these senior citizens want to get out of their 4,000 square foot homes. They want to stay in a home, but they just want a smaller home. They don't want a 2-story or 3-story townhouse or apartment. And we have those, and I'm glad that we do, but we do have plenty of that. We probably have enough for Centerville. So I would ask you to really look at this next transition of a smaller home area. The other thing is that in an apartment, in a condo, and in a townhome, how many children can you have? And I've talked to people about this, and they're saying they're almost forced to not have more children because they are stuck in a 2-bedroom apartment, and they feel like they can't grow their family like they would like. And they want to get into a smaller home with a very small yard. And so that's what I'm hoping that we look at. And I don't think we've talked enough about industrial. I would like to see more industrial on the west side and more business. We need to bring a lot more business in. Thank you.
Thanks, Cami.
Larry Smith, Centerville resident since 1995. I guess whoever asked if I filled out the survey, I noticed that I'm one of the non-lethargic demographic individuals who didn't fill out the survey, but I collected my data by walking around the city, and I might have an opinion. So I'd like to go to the plan real quick, since I did read the whole thing, which is kind of odd, right? I don't know who reads those kind of documents. To the principles and practices, which I think are kind of summed up in goal number 1. I'm going to read it, even though it's obvious. Maintain Centerville's culture and quality of life. Centerville residents cherish their small town community first atmosphere and convenient access to services. The city will protect its historic buildings, support community events, and preserve the unified small town feel that defines Centerville's characteristics or character. So then a couple of pages on down from that is what I feel is the essence of that statement, and that is preserve Centerville's character through thoughtfully planning development to maintain Centerville's unique charm. And I saw the word quaint other places, so just because I do this, I looked up quaint. Quaint and charm require a lot of work. They do. Quaint, pleasingly or strikingly old-fashioned, marked by skillful design, marked by beauty or elegance. And charm is a trait that fascinates, allures, or delights and brings admiration. That's going to require a lot of work. So I'll give my bottom line up front, even though I have more to cover. This plan needs to be reviewed again and get some more input. And the council continue to debate it and look at it. I don't know what the hurry is, so I do like the structure of the report. There was a lot of charm in it. I think you can use a lot of those pictures that they took on your website because they're quaint and charming. Since you paid for it, you might as well get access to them. A few more things. I heard the word protect Centerville. It may require that we secede from the union if we control our zoning laws. I'm being somewhat facetious, but Mayor, you used those words, so secede from the union to protect Centerville. I noticed on the report there's a list of stakeholders. I also noticed that there's a lot that are not listed, that are kind of implied but not listed, and that's the ones that like are the UDOT and the other corporate entities, the legislature, the general class of state requirements, but kind of like 47G group that's kind of, you've heard of them, they're the entity that kind of controls Davis County North and Hill Air Force Base and the building that's happening there. They're a huge stakeholder up there. And they in some cases, they run the show. So those stakeholders were not listed in the plan as stakeholders, but in the reading of it, I think those other entities were brought in as stakeholders. When I was on the Davis School Board, we listened to a lot of plans, particularly when entities like cities wanted to revitalize certain areas and got tax increment funds. The biggest stakeholder is the school district because they're the biggest property tax taker, I guess. And hence, and I thought it was odd that we were always the last ones to review these plans. And so Centerville did that. Blaine Lutz, if you remember him probably, came and presented the frontage road and also the West Side Business Park. And, everybody has good ideas and good plans, but sometimes the things change. So again, really careful planning. And if you're going to design this quaint charm, even on the west side, that'll take a lot of looking into. I remember looking at Clearfield's plan and reviewing it, and also Woods Cross, where the Smiths are. And I was against some of those because sometimes the data that is presented is not the data that makes itself manifest. And one of those was also in terms of the high density here in Centerville. On the west side, when the apartments were being built there by Maverick, and also when Blaine Lutz and others presented the west corridor for the business park area, that they said that the high density housing wouldn't affect the schools. You mean like you can control who moves into those apartments? So I don't want to be too brutal, but that was bunk, because they did affect the schools in some way. And so sometimes there's ramifications for what we do and what we don't do in the out years. The walking path, I forget the name of it, that's supposed to be considered through, I think, Main Street going down Pages Lane maybe, or Chase Lane, and across the frontage road. There's a buzzword to that, I forget what it's called, but that's going to be a lot of work to bring in because I don't recall how they're going to put that in the general plan, but those sidewalks that are separate from the street with a parkway, that's going to require a lot of space and very, very careful planning. And I believe those could be very quaint and very charming. But again, that's going to take some work. I think the mountain bike folks, a few of them are representative, and I have a number in my area. They're almost like a voting block unto themselves, just saying. But yeah, we can do something really great that accommodates the walking and the trails. Again, quaint, charming is probably still applies to even mountain bike trails. I want to be brutal on one development, if I may. The Hive development, I believe, that's north of Center Point, when they were first developing and taking over the zoning that was there, we asked what the price of those units would be. They're kind of like the high-density housing, townhome kind of combo deal, I guess. And the price was pretty high. Pretty high. $400K plus. And then it went to 500. And then people were probably selling them for like 600. I don't know what the current market is. But if that's high-density housing, or, I mean, I don't quite know what it is. But it's brutal to the citizens, regardless of your pay ability. It's just very expensive. So that's just one comment. Real quickly on Freedom Hills Park. I went up the other day, and that's a great park, but it also speaks to the legacy of the forgotten the greatest generation, which the words quaint and charming, I think, would apply. They would probably think differently if they had to speak, but the interesting thing I find out when I talk to my kids, they kind of are now reverting to the music of my generation. Rather than going progressive, they go what Daddy and Mama liked, which was a little bit more traditional. And we may have seen that in how some of these things turned out. Comment on the Centerville Cemetery that was just brought up. Yes, I have some, my daughter actually sent a text of putting some flowers on my wife's grave up at Lakeside, or Lakeside Memorial there in Bountiful. Although I live in Centerville, I knew it was full. But I think at last meeting, and I've come to 2 meetings in a row, so I'm going to drop that trend. I'll see you next year. One of your city staff and I talked about that Centerville Cemetery hillside potential. That could be amazing. I think 10K is what they mentioned about spending the funds to at least look at the possibilities for soil. It's worth 10K, I think. I think it could be amazing and charming and beautiful, like the Freedom Hills Park, kind of like a bowl that looks into the whole city. That would require some work. Quaint and charming would be wonderful, I would believe, with the cemetery, as I can testify to. So those are a few of my comments. I guess the bottom line repeated is the principles that were outlined in the top goal. A goal is almost like a requirement, is to consider reviewing this again, at least you as a council, maybe reverting back to the Planning Commission for their comments. I don't know how the process has worked. And make this quaint and charming, which is, I guess, the words that were heavily stated by virtue of their definition of protecting Centerville. Thanks.
Thank you, Larry. So while he's walking back, charm definition, the power or quality of giving delight or arousing admiration, not only in what we build, but that's up to us as people as well, too. Us 17,000 people. We have the responsibility to be charming as well, too, just not what we build. Okay, so that's what makes a community great, the people that's in it. So that's what you want to build, is that continual service and friendship amongst people. Next. Mm-hmm.
Hi, good evening. My name is Becky Wright. I'm resident here of Centerville for nearly 20 years and grew up most of my life in South Davis County and love seeing so many familiar faces. I was on Planning Commission for 7 years, if you can believe it, and had a great opportunity to learn a lot about Centerville, specifically through the planning and zoning opportunities of that body. Huge thanks to all of you for coming, because this is sometimes a thankless job, And even though we all come and say, thank you, thank you, thank you, that was great. And I just want to say what an amazing opportunity this is. This is such a wonderful opportunity. I remember back in 2015 when we had the Main Street plan, and then we started talking about the general plan. And guess what? That's been 11 years now. But if we don't come to an agreement on a plan, it's sort of like starting the new year without any goals. Maybe there are people who don't like to do goals the new year. I get it. But I love that we're looking at this great opportunity. This is a beautiful opportunity to come together and say, hey, we have done an amazing job. We live in a great place. We are such a unique place. And also, we're sort of like a lot of places in Utah as well. There's a lot of things that are really great about Centerville. And also, how can we maintain those things, but then look forward and say, we do need to plan. We do need to have something on the books so that when people come before Planning Commission, which I was part of, and they say, we're following your plan and we're giving you this new thing that we want to do, if we haven't updated our general plan, if we haven't looked at what could potentially be pitfalls, then we're left at sort of the whim or the real will of what people or developers want to have in Centerville. So I love this opportunity. I will say, in general, I am a big fan of just planning and making sure that we have a plan. Also, in general, I would say I am supportive of the general plan as it stands. Do I think it's perfect? No. Do I think that Centerville is perfect? No. But I think that we can come to an agreement. I think coming together and recognizing not only the comments that we're hearing tonight, all of your ideas that you have on the council, and then recognizing maybe some of the things that you want on the council are not exactly what might be good for Centerville in 10 years or in the next little bit. And there is a lot of talk about what the state legislature is doing, and it's really easy to point to them and say, like, they're the bad guys. They're telling us that we have to do stuff. As a reminder, and I'm sure that Lisa Romney will remind you of this frequently, municipalities gain their power from the state legislature. We gain our power. We have the ability to be a little city given to us from the state legislature. So there are some things that we have to recognize. Yeah, we don't want them telling us what to do, obviously, but they're trying to look at what's going to happen in Centerville with the Olympics. What's going to happen for Centerville with the Great Salt Lake? What's going to happen here? And so there are going to be some things that we need to take into consideration and say, not just they're the boogeyman, they're the bad guys, but why would they be asking that of us? And if they're truly representative of us, what can we learn from that? So I would just caution us from saying everything that they say and do is wrong. I do think it would be better if we can have more control over that. But look at that and say, why would they be asking us to look at smart housing? What trends are we seeing generally in the state, in the region, in our Wasatch Front, and how can we be a part of that solution? The other thing I would say too that I've always felt is pretty unique about Centerville, it is that we always talk about the geography of Centerville, how it is, landlocked between different things. But we have a real chance to, with this general plan, look at what we can do to make us really stand out as a feeling of a community, right? So we don't want to just become the pass-through city. Logically, there are people that are going to be passing through our city quite often, and especially if there's something wrong on I-15. But I would encourage you to think through what it is that we're doing in this general plan that does support what we've heard tonight. Community, diversity in thought and opinion, and diversity in buildings, diversity in businesses. I'm a small business owner with my business here in Centerville. I work from home most of the time, and I love being here in Centerville and having a small business here. But I also know that there are some things that I'm definitely going to go to a different city for because it works better for me as a small business owner. All of that being said, I think generally the plan is a good plan, and I would encourage you to continue to think through ways in which we can work together and strengthen one another through some of our different opinions, and notice that it doesn't have to just be one way or no growth or nothing. Like that actually will be a detriment to our city. So if we can look at how can we see this as a great opportunity to plan for the future and recognize these amazing opportunities that we have. That would be my charge for us as a city and as a council. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Becky. And I love the enthusiasm. And she's pricked by heart. I don't hate the state legislature. My dad was in it for 10 years. I got every nook and cranny memorized up there from when I was a kid.
They're not perfect.
I love the state legislature. They just passed too many bills, especially this year.
It's just hard to keep up.
That's right. And I love the passion. I was not the mayor that asked her to be planning commission. I was Cutler. But she was on it when I came in, and she was excited about this general plan. She had to start her business, and so she couldn't stay on planning commission. But that synergy that we have going and that excitement, I get excited about. And so I love this process, everybody here tonight, and trying to come up with a really great plan that fits what our needs are for the future. Is there more? Wow, I shouldn't have made those comments. It discouraged everybody. But I guess we've got through everybody. So, all right, not hearing any more comments, I will close the public hearing. And I think we've all taken notes, but I'm going to turn it back to the staff, to Mike and to our consultant, Chris, to answer some of these areas. And council, if you've made notes too, check off if they get some of these questions answered and what they don't hit. I will cover, and what I don't cover, you guys can hit. Fair enough? Do you need me to bring up some points, or did you take notes?
I think we both took.
Okay. So just kind of address some of their questions quick.
Yeah, we can.
Specifically to the plan, maybe hit them all.
Right, well, yeah. So just starting off at consider the comments we heard, okay, with kids not living in Centerville. I wanted to address that one first. I heard both sides of that. The unfortunate thing is, again, I've worked with, currently I'm working with, I don't know, 14 different cities along the Wasatch Front. Every single one of them, I've heard residents say the same thing. So if nobody wants their kids to live with them, and this may come across as harsh, but it's not intended to be such. It's more to make a point. Stop having kids. Because the reality is, I in a different city shouldn't be responsible for your city's children, just like another city's not responsible for your children. So to take that approach to say someone else will deal with my problem is sort of an inappropriate thing. And going back to the state comment, that is why they are pushing this, because everyone is saying the same thing. I don't want to deal with that. Have them live somewhere else. And the state's like, well, everyone's saying that, so now we're going to push these mandates on all of you. And to the same point of, they grant the authority to the city to make decisions. And there have been a few bills that would take that authority away in certain circumstances. No one wants that. That is not good for cities. That is not good for the state. We have to take care of our own.
Chris, if I can add a little bit to that. And the concern I've brought up several times is there are states like the state of Oregon where any of the land use planning is actually approved by the state. They have actually taken on all land use planning. So if you want to make changes to your zoning within your city, you need to find a neighbor who's willing to take on that zone and swap, because they have certain expectations. And luckily right now, we're frustrated with the state, but also we can't necessarily resist the state, because right now they're allowing us to dictate our own future if we do certain conditions. So right now we're getting incentives and we're getting the carrot, but if we continue to resist or fight or we don't play ball, the stick will come out. And that's the worry for us, that we need to continue to work with them and find a positive path forward. So, yeah. Chris, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, or?
Well, so I'm not saying you need to plan for all of your kids. You're a finite community. You can only do so much. And I'm not saying stop having kids either. But the reality is we need to plan at least for some of them. That's the only comment with that. I don't know if you had anything to add. And back to your point, like, Oregon's going, and other states are looking at it. They're not the only one.
They're not the only one. I think
Especially
there's
the West Coast.
Yeah, there's
5?
several states, right, 5 total, but
5
there's
states.
another like 4, because I work with a lot of the APA boards across the country to understand what they're doing and their issues. A lot of states are dealing with the same issue we are, and it's frightening.
I think I want to go to the one where we talked about redevelopment areas, and there was some confusion about commentary there, and just a quick, I guess, update or reminder to the group about redevelopment areas. The state has given us a lot of confusion in that field of development as well over the years. When the redevelopment areas first came out in the 80s, they were just called redevelopment areas, and then they did modifications of them in the 90s and changed the rules, and they updated those rules. And then in 2007, the state legislature further changed the term of a redevelopment area from an RDA to community development areas, and they bifurcated, well, I guess not bifurcated, they split it 3 ways into urban renewal areas, economic development areas, and community development areas. And all 3 of them had very different reasons for existing. And I guess I could just briefly say, like, an urban renewal area was for redevelopment of an existing area for new uses or other uses. A community development area was raw ground development into new, typically retail or other similar office products for a community. And then economic development areas were for industrial development needs of a community. So if you're going to try to grow a job or a business park, you would do an economic development area. And then in 2016, because the 3 areas were so, I guess, confusing and confused by a lot of communities, the state thought, well, let's just consolidate all these into a community renewal area, which are CRAs. And so when you look in the plan and you see CDA or RDA or CRA, there's some deliberate reasoning to identify them as such because of the age of that area and how it was developed. So when you talk about like your parish lane redevelopment plan area, there are tools within those areas. There is a development plan, there's a development budget, and then there's the actual agreements that crown those documents. And so the reason that the language in the document is referenced the way it is because of the nature of how those areas are being referenced, I believe, in how you've put together the language. And so it could feel confusing to someone who doesn't maybe have that understanding of the difference in those areas. But you don't want to intermix, we don't want to intermix an area that was established by using a CDA principle and call it a CRA because they are not the same. They weren't established by the same rules, and they're under different guidance of different codes throughout the years. So I just want to clarify, I think, that point, because I think that could dispel the confusion with that language that's found in that area of the economic development section.
And there's certain economic development tools, I'll call them, that can't overlay over each other either, and are actually conflicting in their nature, and so you can't.
Because of different code guidance of how they're operating.
Yeah. I'm just going linear through comments that I heard. Townhomes don't devalue, it wasn't a question, I don't think, but that's actually an accurate statement. We've done a fair amount of research on attached product, and in most cases it actually increases the value because commercial and other sources come with it, and then the whole values go up. So that's actually an accurate statement. Sorry to fact check you, but it's factual. Communities that don't find a way to evolve, adapt and die. Look at Orem, wonderful Orem. They have essentially said no growth, and certain parts of the city are dying. The commercial is leaving because they're like, well, if you're not going to update, we're out. And they've moved to Provo, and they've moved to AF, and they've moved to all these other cities. So parts of the city are dying because they're like, we don't want it. And so it's struggling now. And we're not proposing change everything. That's not it at all. But just as you have a house, if you don't paint it every once in a while, and if you don't do the upkeep, your house is going to fall apart, and then it's not going to be worth anything. We don't want that. No one wants that. You have to, as was mentioned, the quaint. We need to keep doing these quaint things so that we stay quaint. Quaint yesterday is not quaint today. So, great comments.
Cemetery. briefly?
Oh, the cemetery, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about
The general plan actually addresses several locations for a potential cemetery. We knew that was an issue. We talked about it here. We talked about it with the public. We established several locations. There are cost issues in some of those locations and constraints. For example, one of the potential locations is west of I-15, and you would have to elevate the site. Otherwise, you'd have, like, not to be crass, but you'd have floating caskets. Don't want that. And the slopes on the hillside are problematic because you also don't want a luge run. So there are some issues with some of those locations, but we've identified those locations so that that study can be done and find that location. It is needed.
Right back here.
Okay.
It was a Brian Richmond.
So,
And I should also point out, 2 weeks ago, we had a big, long discussion on that in our general session and went to a closed session about potential properties we're looking at. So we continue to work on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wait, sorry.
the next one that I wanted to address just quickly is the base zones don't show anywhere. The general plan, according to LUDMA, which is the state legislature laws and everything that we are governed under, it talks about land use. It does not talk about zoning. And the difference between land use and zoning is one is regulatory, and it says exactly what you're supposed to do. The other is this is the general use for this area. So that's why we address this as a land use, because that's the requirement. We show the land use. That's not to say that we can't add a segment that says these zones could be equated to these zones. That we talked about that, and we can add that with little effort. But being clear, land use guides the use of it, and it also does another thing. It allows the Council and Planning Commission flexibility to make changes real time after whatever distance of time. So a good example is in American Fork, as we were working with them, COVID happened and they had a zoning map as opposed to a land use map. And they basically had to change everything because COVID changed everything. But land use gives you greater flexibility where it says this is the general land use of employment or whatever. It could fit these types of zones, and that gives you the ability to say, no, that's not in line with what we're pursuing as far as vision with this. So it gives you greater flexibility by not establishing a zoning map as opposed to just a land use. For the general plan, this is a general plan which guides the general vision. Zoning map is required for enforcement. Hopefully that helps. Did you have anything to add with that?
But so typically not best practice to include the zoning in the general plan?
A practice could be, if this is the land use, it could equate to these 6 zones.
Categorical reference to zoning types.
As opposed to, it's this.
Okay.
That could be amended or modified as the city needed to.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Mike, is it in our old general plan?
I don't know if the zoning, is the zoning
No, it's the
specifically
land
outlined in the general plan? Yeah, well, no.
Oh, yeah, they did have-
Areas do identify, so the neighborhoods do identify RL or AL uses depending on the neighborhoods, and they do identify specific zoning types that are allowed within those neighborhoods. So, yes-ish.
I thought it did, but I.
It's a hybrid version
Yeah,
because
yeah.
things were established, and so it's like, oh, that's.
There is guidance. It's commentary and direction of what types are uses, and geographically speaking, in each neighborhood, what types would be allowed in those areas of those neighborhoods.
Bryce found the old general plan in my office when he's cleaning it out. I can give you a copy if you
I
want.
have a copy, I've
Double.
been reading it.
Okay.
Reading it.
Let's see. There was a question by resident Cammie Layton about housing types in areas of the city. And that is an interesting comment because as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about the hops, which again, I will send you all that so you can see that.
Is that 6 units an acre?
6 units
That's
to the
where
acre
it
is the
starts.
minimum.
I actually thought of the
Yeah.
hops too when she
was
mentioned
talking, that would be a great zone because it doesn't require attached unit to be within those areas. They can be solely detached units. They have a moderate income housing element I think 60% of the area has to have a moderate income housing element, but we're talking 80% of average median income of the community is what would be the attainable price rate for that. They're owner occupied for the first, do you know if it's 5 years they're required to be owner occupied? Does that sound right?
Yeah, Lisa can probably correct, but it's
okay.
5 to 10, but yeah.
But anyway, and you can't have it be any larger than 10 total acres in area. So it seems to match what was being considered here. The other benefit of creating a HOPS is it's actually increment driven for the infrastructure. So the city gets the proceeds of the increment growth and can use those proceeds to develop the area for these new homes to be owner occupied to grow true residential home units, as opposed to townhomes if that's not the city's preference. It seems like the state's trying to say, hey, we're trying to afford home ownership even if they are smaller home types, if the city's open to that. Another advantage of a HOPS area is all of the taxing entity districts are required to participate up to 60% of what the local government entity determines is necessary to develop those areas. And it can be for a period up to 15 years. So I know that's a little more deep than just the question, but I think that evidences some of the programs that are available to communities to benefit these types of development that are maybe more single detached housing units, but still accomplish moderate income housing goals of a community. So,
yeah. There's a lot of tools that could be utilized to help. And again, that's what the previous question was. It doesn't have to be these 5. We can adapt those to the ones that best fit the city. And that's the way that it should be. And they could be different every year. I don't advise that because that's a lot of work. Don't do
Mike
that.
would really like it.
Oh, it would be horrible. I wanted to address one question about the state having power, just so it can directly, the state could take that power back. I already addressed that, but the state could take the power to zone back, as was previously mentioned. I just wanted to address that directly. They aren't anticipating it as a general thing, but there are locations that they're anticipating it because of the issues that have happened where they've had run-ins with cities and things like that, and there's been concerns with that, where it's got to go somewhere. So I just want to address that. And then let's see. As far as the apartments, townhomes, townhomes nowadays are, as far as size of the house, they're just as big as single-family detached homes. They have the same amount of. In Utah County, if you look at the new townhomes versus the single-family detached, generally on the same or on the same size as far as square footage, exact same units, that you can have a family in a townhome, you can have a family in a single-family home. And as was mentioned, everyone has a different preference. I want a yard, others may not. It's okay. It's okay to not force what I want on that person and them not on me. That's okay to have that diversity of product type. And diversity of product type actually increases the value of everything and makes things more affordable. So, and then as far as the industrial, we actually propose industrial to shift north and be, the business park to shift north. We don't want the whole west side to be tilt up because that's actually one of your lowest tax values that you can get outside of residential. So you would want commercial because dollar for dollar or square foot per square foot, you're getting 4x plus. It's actually a lot more than that, but you're getting significantly more tax revenue on one commercial building than you are on acres of tilt-up. So be careful about pushing all tilt-up over there.
And when you say tilt-up, you're talking industrial
industrial,
uses,
yeah.
flex-type uses.
Use a little jargon there, apologize. But you want to balance. Have both. You need both. It builds a better, vibrant community, but don't overdo one or the other.
Well, and it creates variation in job opportunities for your residents, so they get more benefit.
Right, a wider range of job opportunities to stay here. High density doesn't affect schools. It does affect schools. He had mentioned that it doesn't affect schools. It does affect schools, but it affects schools at a drastically lower rate. typically you don't see children in apartments, so that comment is accurate. But townhomes, it's almost 1-for-1 as far as a single-family home and a townhome nowadays. They affect schools very similarly. It is a little bit less of a rate for townhomes than it is for single-family, but that is actually trending the other way. It's actually moving in the direction of townhomes because more and more of the single-family homes can't be afforded by families.
Yeah, demographic
So
shift.
more of the effect is happening on townhomes, not so much on apartments. It does have an effect, but even single-family homes, we're seeing a trend where it's going downwards, but it's sort of going to equalize as well. I think we addressed.
Yeah, that's the thing, I couldn't see anything else.
Can you address, as our Community Development Director, Andrew Richmond brought up, building quality, selection of contractors, and inspections of those homes?
Yeah, so we do in community development oversee the building inspector for the city. It's a contracted employee, and clearly, if issues are identified and notified throughout the process, I would have a conversation with our building inspector about that. But one thing that is continually being reviewed and debated by the state legislature, again with townhomes, is how we go about inspecting and doing plans for townhomes. And they're continually trying to take away the ability of a city to go one by one by one by one. And so it becomes harder and harder to, and I'm not trying to throw the legislature under the bus, it's just the facts. It becomes harder to look at each and every unit plan and then inspect each and every unit as they take away more and more of those keys from us. So it's a tough push-pull, because I recognize what was said by Ms. Richmond about the quality of developers, but property developers do have rights to develop units, and we do want to get the best quality we can, so we need to make sure we're holding the plans to an expectation or standard of our community, as well as making sure our inspector is doing their job. I guess another comment to that would be that as we do look at maybe other housing variations, even smaller homes, the city can always evaluate design expectations or style guides that could be looked at and apply to project areas if a lot of times it's through some kind of agreement process or light expectations. Again, I'm trying to be careful there because the state legislature, ironically, is still trying to even pull some of those design expectations away from us. So again, it becomes a targeted push-pull in how we get quality development, quality projects, quality homes, but at the same time, do it in a way that the state legislature says you can't do that. It's a tough dynamic.
So, Mike, I have a question. Are you telling me that on a townhome, I mean, so many years ago when I built my house, they came and they checked the electrical, they checked the plumbing, they checked the framing. Do they not do that on each individual?
They should be. Again, I can't evidence what was happening before. They should be. But what I guess I'm saying is more and more the state is eroding even that, because what developers are saying is we're building the exact same unit every time while you're questioning what we're doing. And so the state continues to erode those studies of plans and those inspections of the units. So I think right now the inspections could happen unit by unit, but I know for sure, like the plans, you can only do one plan set, and if the developer says they're each identical, then the one is good enough. And the state is putting that pressure on us when we look at them that way.
Well, I can see that. I mean,
Yeah.
it would make me nervous, like with the electric.
Right.
I mean, we had an electrician come to our house who was not the regular one that worked for our contractor, and he wired everything backwards, including our phones. I mean, finally, the phone company just said to us, look, we're just gonna rewire you backwards on the phone, on the pole. It was easier than trying to rewire the whole house.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, just because you have one electrician wire it here doesn't mean that it's here. So as a city, isn't that our responsibility to check those things?
It is, and we're assuming liability before we give them a certificate of occupancy on it. So that's where, but if there are challenges with the housing unit that's been established for 2 or 3 years and the inspection's been done right, then I don't know. But if after an inspector comes through and something's missed, I would hope that I get a call
right.
to communicate to the inspector that something is missed or needs to be reevaluated.
Okay, I just was,
Yeah, sorry to confuse that, but I guess what I'm getting at is the state, even on a bill that's identical, they're pulling back further and further our ability to regulate those kind of units.
And materials and design standards are being more heavily pulled back as opposed to allowing that regulation to happen at the city scale. And all of these things are happening for the idea that the state's saying, things are not affordable. What are we gonna do to make them more affordable? That's why the state is doing those things, from what we've heard. That's why it's happening, to make things more affordable.
So I guess it just becomes more of a tightrope to get quality communities without the state saying you can't do that.
But even though the argument is to make it affordable, they are still selling their units for market price, as we've seen in.
well, we do have a problem
Centerville.
because.
So it makes it helps them. And
Right, I was
that's-
gonna say, we do have a problem because our legislator is made up a lot of developers and realtors, I mean.
But that's,
So we're getting-
but that's the conversation they want us to have with developers, where we incentivize and say, look, we'll give you more density.
Right.
If you can restrict these units to
Yep.
being affordable to this
Yep.
amount and try
That's
to
exactly
restrict
it.
that, and that's how we control pricing and to keep it low. So those are the options, but.
So how do they decide who gets the cheap houses?
Well, it depends on what we want to do. So, we'll get off just a little bit, sorry. So, in a previous life, I managed these type of programs, deed restrictions, type properties, and they're actually time consuming to make sure that it's owner occupied as well as income verified. But you can create, as a city, we can create the application process to say, here's how you qualify for the unit, and we manage that. But now it's staff time verifying that it's owner occupied and not being leased out. And it is time consuming, but they're valuable programs. After 5, 10, 15 years, then they can move on. But you've given this family an opportunity to move into a home. So they are time consuming, but we could create those plans. Or you work with the housing authority of the county who have these programs, and you say, look, will you manage these for us? Since they already have those applications in place, and which is what I would recommend if we went this direction, so.
So that leads into Larry Smith's question, not part of the general plan, but the Hyde development. Market prices control what they're selling them for. That was a difficult one. We changed the use. We didn't, as a council, it didn't come to us. Bless her heart, she was chair of the planning commission, and they went through that emotional process. The use was changed. We can't dictate what the prices our people sell. That's the market. Will you touch on one of the other Larry's questions? This general plan is an idea, as you guys introduced, of what the public would like to see going through those 10 priorities, okay? So when you outline the walking path, is that just what we want to see, or do we have an idea of how we're going to put that walking path in that he was talking about?
So I feel like that might be talking about the South Davis Greenway, which is the other project that we're working on with Councilmember Hurst guiding, well, as the council representative on that. And that is meant to be a grade separated, where possible, it doesn't have to be in all cases, but clearly a separated pedestrian path to accommodate full safety for any cycling, walking, rolling type behaviors as a safe separated area to connect to our counterpart city in Bountiful along 4th West, go down Chase Lane, and then continue northward along Frontage Road as it connects to Farmington. And the idea there is to create, for lack of a better way, a linear park amenity is the idea that would have landscaping features and maybe even coloration or directional signage and those sorts of things. So it becomes almost in its own way a really exciting community asset that could be an extension of the park system for the community. To that point even, it goes right by in its conceptual establishment, community park, which then with UDOT's connection of their bridge over I-15 and Legacy connects to the Legacy Trail, and you get this really nice, unique, connective park and trail system that becomes a great amenity for the community. So I guess, long story short, that's a little out of sequence with the general plan because that's a newer process that we are working on as a benefit to all of the communities. When I say all the communities, it's North Salt Lake, Bountiful, us, and Farmington connecting to even Fruit Heights. So on the north end, it will connect to Fruit Heights. On the south end, it'll connect to Salt Lake is the idea. but it becomes then a large feature or benefit. And I guess, Mayor, to your point, maybe that should be shared with Chris as part of the final document to make sure we evidence that so that that's more clearly explained and discussed in the document.
That was one of my thoughts, is that we maybe
Yeah.
needed to add a little paragraph.
Yeah.
That's kind of because that could impact future trail and park development.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
even guide further connections into it as part of the system it's trying to be. So that's a good request for that.
Well, and funding opportunities and a lot of different things, because there's layered funding that you can put towards some of these things to make them work easier.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're losing people, so maybe you've gone through your questions. So let me say the process going forward. Thank you for all your comments, everybody. Over the next few weeks, the City Council will be meeting further on this as well, too. We appreciate all the comments and other comments that we have gotten as well, too. I just think, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, that we cannot expect a perfect document, but we can expect a dang good document, okay? I kind of look at it as the Declaration of Independence, you know? Thomas Jefferson was given the charge to write that. He struggled with it. If I get my history wrong, somebody's going to correct me, I'm sure. And he ultimately came back, and he thought it was a perfect document, and he had to change some things and strike some things out and that sort of thing. But we don't want to get too caught up on words, an I or a me or that sort of thing. It's just the general of the plan. If there's conflicts from one section to another, then definitely we want to fix that. But we got to understand that we'll never get through this thing if we get caught up about all the I's and me's. Now, if council sees they're all in agreement on a few of those, then, you know, then we'll get those changed. But it is an evolving document, but we would like to get it settled. Now, we also have to mix in our budget as well, too, which is all important to you as well, too. And we start that process for 2 nights in a row in a couple weeks. So that's where we're going with it. We love the comments. Look for, you're welcome to join further on work sessions and that sort of thing. Now, moving forward tonight, we got a public hearing on the adoption of the Wildlife Urban Phase, an Arbor Day Proclamation, and a couple other things. And then Councilmember Robin Meekum's going to sing to us her report, so you might want to stay for that.
You probably don't want to stay for that one. I have one question, Chris. So on this general plan, if we make some, you know, we talked about some changes, you'll do that and then give us, once we've all met, we've got it where we want, then you go back through and plug that in and give us the shiny end product. Is that correct?
Right. So the end result of this process and was, I can't remember, you correct, the InDesign document, the final draft that's been approved, the Word version of it, all the, I'm going to use another term, it's a software, GIS data, so that the city can actually track things and make adjustments to things. So all of those things will be packaged up and handed to the city.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
So we'll get the shape files, what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And Chris, may I just comment too, thank you for the hard work. And there's a lot to this, and we all get that.
Right.
And I think we're all grateful for a great backbone and a good format here for the general plan. I wonder, as you have understood, there's so much public comment, are you willing to give us some direction, some guidance on that? Like, yeah, this is a great idea, or this is not even legal, or this is maybe incorporate? I mean, can you help us with that?
Oh yeah, and that's what we've been doing through the process.
We got Chris to do that. We got Mike as well, too, because he's does the legalities, and we have Lisa as our attorney to see if some of these suggestions are even legal as well, too. So, so hopefully and we got Brent, who's been a city manager, and
He knows what he's doing. Yeah.
Boy, I'm going to miss somebody. Okay, but anyway, so yes, hopefully
I mean,
we'll have that.
but you're contracted to do it. Can you look at those documents that we have now and say, give us some feedback shortly, because we want to get to the end of the road here.
Right.
We want to finish this up, and
We have done that. I mean, I've read a lot.
We need to be respectful of Chris as well, too. I own a business where you bill by hours, and you try and be so polite, but you can't let a few people take up all your time. So we'd have to stay focused on who takes up their time.
Well, and I think it's important to remember too, that we did expand the contract a year ago. So I do think there needs to be some respect to when he says he's spent 200 hours beyond the contract, that means he is volunteering that time. Somas is not collecting money on that 200 hours. And I think it's really important that he's been really good to us to donate that time. I think we need to be fair to him in our expectations of what he's going to do. And the reason I'm going to bring that up is because beyond the scope of what was presented, and I did go back through and kind of review from the interview process, your proposal, that did not include that mailer to all of the residents. I think that was extremely helpful, but it was very time consuming and it was beyond the scope. So I think if we're going to talk about that, we need to talk about being also fair to Somas as far as that goes.
Because you're right, he was willing to do that.
I don't think Somas should have to work for free.
And we spent extra money to do that as well too, on the mailing part of it,
Right.
even though he was
Right.
willing to do it without any cost.
And when you delay, because of that, it's delayed it. I mean, we're a year beyond when this was supposed to be turned in. Anytime you delay that long and you have that much more comment, I appreciate it, and I'm so grateful for all of the resident comment. I don't resent, or I'm not sad about that. I'm really glad we've had this opportunity to get this out to the community and have more engaged feedback. I just think we need to be sensitive to the fact that this has gone a year beyond, which means Chris has spent time that just wasn't included in that contract.
Yeah, and can I add one thing? Because Mayor, I'm like you. I bill by the hour. 200 hours of donated time is 5 weeks. 5 weeks of your life you gave to us for free that you could have been
And that's my
doing something
personal
else.
life.
No, I know. So what I'm telling you, Chris, is when I heard that, I was actually shocked, right? Because I know how much 200 hours is to donate, and for you to do that for us, I just want you to know that I really appreciate it.
Which is why I asked if we had the ability to obtain the file and internalize this from here on out. That was my intent, because I feel like he has done a great service, and he's provided us a great product that we can now take from here. If we want to go through and edit it ourselves, have somebody that on staff that can make the strike-throughs and edit those changes that we all can agree on, and then provide maybe a working final draft to Somas if they're willing to review that product. That might be what I'm talking about. But trying to incorporate Chris and Somas in any type of further support or advice, I think that's going above and beyond, and I would want to internalize it from here on out.
I don't want to answer for Chris, but I'll answer that this way, in my opinion. I take pride in my work. Everybody takes pride in their work, and he doesn't want a product slashed all get out that really he doesn't want to put his name on. Okay, so that's where we have to be careful with what we do. We want a good general plan, but why did we go through the process of engaging a professional?
That's a great
and all the steps we went through.
But that was voted on by
Because the council approved it, including yourself, Councilman Plummer.
I was not on the council at that
You
time.
know, we approved that contract.
It doesn't matter, it was approved.
It doesn't, but it was approved.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's just part of the process. So yes, we could make some changes.
Right, so
but
the process, he's been paid, he's provided a product, he's worked 200 hours outside of what we've contracted him for. Why are we trying to bring him back in without having paid any? Let's do it internally and then provide a product that to the city, that the citizens have a little bit of, they've bought into it because they've also had some input into this document. It's not just a corporate SOMAS document.
As we discuss this further as a council in future sessions, we can make our, get the feel of the council, what direction they want to go there. Did you have something you want to say? We need to take a quick break. Did you
No,
have
if we're going to
anything?
discuss it later, that's fine.
Okay, let's take a quick 5-minute break because it is late, and then get back here to do those last few items that I talked about. All right, are you ready, Jennifer? Okay, let's continue on. We actually have another public hearing. I don't think we'll have as many comments on this one. Unless Bryce King's long-winded or something. So let's move on with that. Adoption of the Wildland Urban Interface map. Brant, Lisa, you guys want to talk about this? There's background in your material of why we're needing to do this, but you guys go ahead.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. I will say it's with a very heavy heart to present this item. We've been working with Chief Stewart and Fire Marshal Fessler on this. They've been helping us with our map and understanding the reasons and the importance of this. And a couple weeks ago, Chief Stewart and our Fire Marshal walked, I think, almost all of our border and all of these areas and provided us with a 20-page PowerPoint with pictures and which areas we should include in our map, or because fires come down these drainages and they actually continue to go down those drainages, so some of those areas are important to protect. And Bountiful has protected those areas outside of what we're proposing, but anyway, I do want to say that Chief Stewart was an amazing man and a great leader and an amazing mentor, and I will greatly miss him, as well as thousands of people, our entire community, as we've seen in the last couple days. So I appreciate all the work he's done on this and how important this was to him. And so we are proposing to comply with state law, which was adopted last year in the 2025 session, adopting the Wildland Urban Interface Code. So essentially, it's a building code that the state has adopted. It's the 2006 version, and they're proposing to adopt the 2024 version in some legislation this year. I just double checked and I don't know, it doesn't look like it's passed yet, but anyway, in order to comply with the law, we just decided to move forward with this and adopt the 2006 version, as the state is mandating all cities do. And if this new legislation passes, we'll come back with some amendments. But essentially what the law does is adopt this Wildland Urban Interface Code, and any properties within a designated area will need to comply with that code. They've left it up to cities to determine that wildland urban interface area with some discretion. Again, the legislation this year is taking away some of that discretion, but the state came up with sort of a risk factor, and they have an entire website devoted to this where they show how fires spread and where the embers go and, you know, where the drainages are. And so they've given properties a risk factor from 1 to 8. And depending on where you are in that risk factor, the legislation this year is saying, hey, if you're 5 and above, that's all cities can do. We can't go lower than that. So
you can add, if you want,
Yes.
add properties, like if it's a 3 or a 4, you can add that property, but you can't go the other way and remove 5 and 6 and only do 7 and 8 as part of your code. We are required to do 5 and 8.
Right, and so what the chief was helping us and had also done for Bountiful is to help us understand that there are some areas, and this is why the state said, look, we're gonna do this massive state map, but cities, you need to do the detail work and decide, are there some parcels, this is parcel by parcel, are there some parcels that really do have, you know, more dangerous conditions that you would like to add?
So if it's not marked in green, it is not a level 5, it's low.
It's not, exactly, it's
below 5.
4 and less. And so what we've done here is we're just proposing that Centerville adopt so that we can comply with state law. We adopt this wildland urban interface map, which is all of our parcels listed on the state factor website as 5 and above. You can even see some properties that are right in the hillside are not included in this. So, and we would like to work to possibly amend this, but right now, I think this is probably as far as we should go until we see what the legislation does, because the legislation is potentially going to limit us to this. So it will, this is the easiest part of this process, is adopting this 2-page ordinance. And we will then have to implement it and train someone to understand this code, to create, you know, we're going to have to change our process for building permits and make sure if you're in this area, you have some options to either comply or, you know, with different building materials and other things. So anyway, we will have some implementation afterwards, and I think Mike Eggett his department will probably be in charge of working with our building officials to implement that and getting our applications up to date and some checklists. But other cities around us have already done this, and so we do have some good examples, with Lake and Bountiful, that we can look to for some of those checklists and things. So I guess with that, yeah, we're just recommending that we adopt this, and then just as a cleanup, to be transparent, we're also proposing an amendment to the version, the international code version of our electrical code. We still have the 2020 edition in our code, and it should be the 2023 edition. Again, some legislation is looking at updating all of those construction codes, but we would like to adopt this because there is some risk of losing some funding in the case of a wildfire. And if the city doesn't cooperate, that's our risk, is that those costs would be incurred by the city rather than having assistance from the state. So to me, I think both Brant and I, that's a risk we don't want to take. We're entering spring. We just as soon get this on the books, the basics, start implementing it, and then talk about if we want to add properties and see where the legislation is as well to see if we even have the option.
So going back just a little bit, the reason why there's a little bit of a delay here, particularly with the 5 cities, is that South Davis Fire Chief Stewart was saying, we'll take this on, this is our responsibility. But going through this, they realized and were told basically, no, it's the city's responsibility. So Chief Stewart and his team had done a great deal of research and was actually advising all of the 5 cities on how to do this. And then, so this was supposed to be implemented as of January 1st. So the risk right now is if we had a fire on the hillside and required state assistance, we are 100% required to pay for that fire. There is no assistance from the state. So the adoption of this code is critical. It places this burden on the property owners as they go through this new code that we'll have to educate all these homes on, that you now have this extra layer of permitting or requirements for you living on the hillside. But ultimately, if we don't adopt this code and there's a fire on the hillside after tonight, between now and when we do pass it, we will bear 100% of that cost. So that's why we're saying we'd like to adopt this tonight, just to make sure, because ultimately we're getting some great rain, which is awesome, not likely to fire, but that's a lot of fuel we're putting on the hillside as well, between now and our next meeting in April. So I think it's good to get something passed now, and then we can make some potential changes in April, with changes in the legislation at the state level.
I don't want to add to any homeowners that we don't have to, and I'm fine to discuss this another day, but I think it should be noted that there's a rather significant area that, in my time since I've been on council, the Worsley Lane and North area, 540 North, that is the neighborhood that was evacuated during that last fire. So I'm not trying to make their lives more difficult, but I do think that that neighborhood's the one that got evacuated, so.
To that point, I mean, neighboring city, Mayor Bradshaw actually walked the entire community in Bountiful and added properties to it based on her own experience and pictures she took.
Okay.
And so, again, we're not advocating to create the area larger than it has to be right now.
That's fine.
Just because, again, this is, once we get through the permitting process, we can come back and say, council, do we want to narrow it down to other properties that potentially are 4 based on their location? But right now, let's adopt the 5 to the 8, get the implementation in place, and then potentially make tweaks after that,
And
if necessary.
I do have some requested changes. In looking at the new legislation, they do a better job describing the state map. So I would like to recommend amendments to the proposal that rather than just calling it the structure exposure score, called the smooth structure exposure score map. So there were 2 maps. One was just the parcels, and it was sort of jagged, and then they took a smooth map, and so anyway, they're recommending to use the smooth map, so I would like to reference that, and also referring to it as a risk category on that map of 5 or higher. So that's the language that they use in the new legislation, so I just want to stay consistent with that. So there's 2 areas in section 10.03.126, if you could just in your motion, include those changes as discussed. And then this does not require a public hearing, but I think in terms of the discussion from the council and the transparency importance, this will impact homeowners. So we have noticed it as a public hearing to give homeowners and property owners an opportunity to comment on this.
Does it affect their fire insurance? Their homeowner's insurance?
I'm not
If they're
prepared
in
to
this
answer
zone?
that.
It will add additional costs. It's going to.
Yeah, if that's said, looked at a high-risk area, that could be a problem for their fire insurance, for sure. Yeah.
And that's where I think the mayor stated that people need to engage with their legislators, because this is coming down from the state. And we really don't have a choice, because it would be unacceptable to have a situation where we didn't have this in place, and we ended up having an emergency where the state had to step in and help, and we were on the hook for all of that. That would be unacceptable. But by implementing it tonight, I feel like we are coming in, we're going to have a situation where we just don't know all of the outcomes that will come from this, other than the state will step in and help pay for an emergency that they come in and help support. We don't know how costs are going to rise. So we do need to probably be a little bit more transparent. And as we can see, there's not anybody, no offense, you all here were for the general plan, but if you are here for this next part, forgive me, but there aren't a lot of people for this public hearing. So are they going to be aware of what's going to happen tonight, and how can we help them become more aware if and when this does pass?
Yeah, and I think as staff, we'll have to discuss how we roll this out, because there will be an education process and there will be some impact. But I think from the legislative standpoint, I think we've seen throughout the West and the country that wildfires are a significant risk and concern, and something that we really need to handle systemically. And I think this is the first step towards that, to trying to help educate that, there are some building materials that we can do. There are some clear, safe zones that we can build. We can put different vents that close, and the embers will not be sucked in during a fire
Trees
event.
can't be, the limbs can't be on the roof, right? If you have a tree near your home, it can't be on the roof. And those types of things that are actually just smart if you live in this interface.
So that it doesn't come all the way down and engulf the entire city.
So say taking 5 homes, and, takes 1 home maybe.
Nice cemetery on the foothill help.
But it will also cost more to build.
Maybe.
So those homes that fall in that area, I guess the process we've been through is we have to include them, right? I mean, they've fallen in that area,
Yes.
an area defined.
Unless you want to take the risk.
An area defined by the state legislature.
Yes. They're the ones who determine the risk
Yeah.
factor.
Where's Casey Snyder's Heber? Anyway, I don't like to get on any particular. But, okay, I got you. Other further questions?
Well, I guess I should clarify that. The state is allowing cities to prepare their own map. But there's a debate. I mean, we need within reason. And so this is our recommendation.
The 5 to 8 is just adopting what the state, more than likely is going to be passed to the state legislature this year. We could say 7 to 8 till that passes, or even just, you have some flexibility right now, but ultimately, based on Chief Stewart's recommendation, was more than likely this bill will pass, because he actually testified on the Hill about this bill, and the impact it'll have.
Yeah, maybe you could see where I was getting at. Can you pass it just going right to the homes and not include the homes? You know?
I mean, you're talking about vacant land and determining which parcels meet it and which don't. I mean, they still, if you have a vacant parcel and they want to build, they would then have to adhere to that. Most of these homes are already built. If you're coming in for a permit, yes, you might have to comply, but if you're just talking about vacant land, then you're actually making it harder on them than the existing homes.
Yeah, I'm talking more about the existing homes and the potential of their costs for insurance going up.
Well,
With this new law coming into effect, the insurance companies might,
they're going to be all
They
over
already
it anyway.
know. Everybody-
they're going to require it, because they're going to say, we're not going to
Well,
insure you without.
great points, great discussions. I mean, obviously, people already on the Hill and Bountiful have had homes for years. The rates have gone up, and there's less insurers, and so, yep.
And just a reminder, is it,
Just remind what?
It's a public hearing. You can.
Oh, yeah, I just was seeing everybody done with questions. So I'll do a public hearing. There's a public hearing on the municipal code amendments, adoption of the Wildland Urban Interface Code, and our own particular Wildland Urban Interface map. Anybody want to comment? Please come to the podium and say who you are and where you're from. Seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing. I don't know if there's more discussion or not, because we didn't have any comments, so, and sounds like discussion has ended, so. Further clarification before I look for a motion on this?
If the state was to pass a bill that raised the threshold from 5 to 7, would that be something that we could amend in the future?
absolutely.
For sure.
Anybody want to give a shot?
I move that we adopt ordinance number 2026-03, amending the Centerville Municipal Code to adopt the 2006 Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code and the Centerville Wildland Urban Interface Map as required by state law, with the 2 changes to section 10.03.126, referenced by staff.
Second.
Well, motion is second, further discussion?
Can we add an amendment now that would raise that threshold if and when this bill passes? And it did raise that number from 5 to 7. Is that something I could, it would be kind of a retroactive amendment if they passed it up at the Capitol, then it would go into effect.
I think on that you would probably want to have the 20-page PowerPoint and maybe a little bit more information to understand what is that risk? You know, what are the homes in, now you're taking it up to 7. Like, I actually don't know where the 7 starts. So anyway, it's a policy decision for the city council, but I think a more educated decision if and when the legislature changes it.
Fair, okay.
All right, let's vote then. Start with the
I
councilman.
don't think there was a second.
Oh,
I seconded it. Did you
seconded.
second?
Yeah, thank you. Councilman Banger going to the right.
Aye.
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 All right, let's go to Arbor Day Proclamation. Bruce isn't here, but it looks like it's just a proclamation stating that declaring March 28th is Arbor Day. Anything else I need to know about it, anybody?
More excitement, Mayor. Arbor Day, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Mayor, I don't.
No,
Proclaim it, Mayor.
I am excited because that's
Is that the
what makes
official
us a tree
Arbor Day?
city.
Is that official Arbor Day?
No, I was gonna say Bruce isn't here, but the official Arbor Day isn't until, I wanna say April 26th. Or it's sometime in April.
Earlier this year.
Yeah, but,
And I don't
as
remember,
part of our application to apply for Tree City USA, we do have to pass this proclamation, and the tree board is planning on doing a tree celebration on the 28th, so he just had us declare the 28th as Arbor Day for Centerville, so.
Heather was the one that pushed this forward?
It came to me from Bruce. I haven't talked to Heather about it, but I'm sure it came from the tree board through Bruce and came back to me, so. But I haven't spoken to Heather about it.
Heather's usually always, I mean, not Heather, the tree board
Yeah.
is obviously, in the past, has always been very supportive of our Arbor Day proclamation.
Absolutely,
We
and
do it
and I
one every
agree
year.
with that. I just,
Yeah.
the last meeting I was at, which was just the most recent, we did not discuss it to be on that day. And that's why and I had hoped that she would have let me know that that was something that they had discussed, just so I would be aware. And I think that if Arbor Day is indeed on April 26th, I really, 25th?
24th.
24th, excuse me. I would really like to, I mean, I don't want to counter Bruce, and if he's discussed it with Heather, then I suppose that is something that they've done.
It just sounded to me like the city celebration is planned for that day, and they have some things planned to do that day, and so they just decided to declare it.
Coordinated
but-
trees and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The event itself.
Oh, is this for the, okay, so there's another, a third party that's coming in and doing some
No,
things?
not necessarily. It's
Okay.
what we coordinate once a year. So Parks Department coordinates and usually works with the tree board on a date that works for volunteerism and things like that.
Right, and
So-
it just didn't come up, and I haven't seen Bruce at the meeting, so I'm just trying to get it all clear, because we had discussed it being, you know, but again, I may be out of the loop on this one.
Bruce said the Tree City USA requirement is that you declare it and have some kind of recognition celebration, and each city chooses what works for them. He said, I suggested April 24th to the Tree Utah folks, but they're too busy in April with other celebrations, so they asked if we could do it
I
March.
have it come out, it's Tree U2.
Okay, very good. I'm glad that, thank you for reading that.
All right, we got a motion?
I'm going to say this with enthusiasm. Are you ready? I move that we approve Proclamation 2026-01 declaring March 28th, 2026 as Arbor Day. Woo-hoo. There we go. Enthusiasm. You know, like I'm just, it's the caffeine, man.
Second?
Second.
So we got a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? I am excited. I'm just trying to get through it, you know, so. All right, summary action. This is a bid award on Porter Lane culinary water line. As you can see, there's about 8 bids in front of you there. And it looks like the motion's to accept P&L Construction. If any questions, anybody can answer. Any questions, though? It is summary action. Do we need Mike?
I was happy to see 7 bidders.
I was very happy to see
Fantastic.
7 bidders.
And I was
Good
going to
job.
comment the same thing, obviously. Very good job.
Mike, you want to say anything? I'm good. If you no questions, you're good?
Want me to make a motion?
Okay, yeah, make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the bid award for Porter Lane Estates subdivision culinary water line to P&L Construction in the amount of $78,996.50.
I'll second that.
Oh, go ahead, Rob, give it to Robin.
Motion by Councilwoman Hurst, second by Councilwoman Meekum. Councilwoman Hayman, to my right.
Aye.
Vote
Aye, sorry.
Aye.
Apologize.
Aye.
Beautiful. Okay, we got minutes review and approval. The February 17th City Council and the February 17th closed session. Do we see any changes that need to be made on those minutes? Hearing none, we have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion to second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Awesome. Passes. You have in front of you on the next item, the monthly financial report. It's not a quarter end, so it is just presented for your information. But as always, our trusted finance director has highlighted a few areas. If you have any questions about those areas and any others, it looks like he's out there still. But if not, like I said, it's not a quarter end, so that's just there for your information. Any questions for Nate? Thank you, Nate. Councilwoman Meekum, who will report on committee assignments, including the Whitaker Museum Board.
So first of all, I'm on the Utopia, but I don't really have, it's just kind of doing its thing. We're staying pretty even with our takers. A little concerned because, as you know, Quantum came through and put the fiber in and did a big push, and then AT&T bought them. So that would probably be our biggest competitors. But as of right now, we're staying pretty even with where we're at. The museum is doing some really cool things. I'm so excited for the museum board, and those guys work so hard. And I wanted to bring you all a little blue card. I will bring it next time because I got so excited over the general plan, I forgot my blue cards. But they do have, I want you to know that March they're celebrating the Women's History Month, and they've got some really cool stories of women from Centerville. And they've got the stories on the walls over there. The museum is open Tuesdays and Thursdays on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 6, and on Thursdays from 5 to 8. And then on the 14th, they're having a Women's History free event, and it's got a lot of fun activities. So it's pretty cool, but they've got a lot of really fun activities throughout the rest of the year, and they've got a really nice little postcard with them all on, and I have one for you, but I didn't bring it. But I did bring all my binders. That's all I've got.
Wonderful. Thanks. Any questions for Councilwoman Meekum on that? Anybody else highlights that we need to know about in their committees before your reporting time?
Can I just ask one thing, Mayor? I
Yeah.
got a message here. FBI's urgent warning about America's enemies have found a way to strike without firing a single shot. Hackers are attacking city water systems, overriding safety protocols to weaponize our utilities against us, and positioning themselves to strike when the signal comes. Mike, I assume we're protected.
Is it fishing, Mike, or he did a thumbs up on us, so he's wearing something on it, I'm guessing.
Well, just real quick, so we run independent servers, so being safe is a big priority on our water system. We've had Homeland Security come in a couple times. They've looked us over, they've gave us recommendations. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how to apply for a couple upgrades on 2 servers. So we're not tied to the web too much. We've tried to have everything discontinued, so part of the water system, it independently ran, so we feel pretty good about where we're at, so does Homeland Security.
And what about somebody dumping something in a reservoir?
Oh, the hatches are all locked. They got shoe tops on them. They're real hard. It'd be tough for them to do it. So, yeah.
I'm sure it's in good control in there. Thank you.
Well, we have, like at our well houses, we have switches where the door opens, it alarms. We can upgrade however we want. If we want to have a high security, we can have it call out our operators whenever one goes off or whatever. But it kind of, we just go off the security level of what the state has at the time. So, which right now is not that high for some reason. So, any question? I gotta go before, never mind.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, Mayor's report. America 250, we're doing things in our community. Haley's not here, but and unfortunately, I met with Councilwoman Hurston, a member from our Parks Board, Brooke Johnson, about, because she's aware of, in touch of 250 activities that are going on throughout the state. But our committee chairs on that committee are the heads of the various boards and committees that we have, and each one of them are coming up with various activities. So we'll report further. Haley and I still had to meet. She couldn't be at that meeting. She had her grandfather's funeral. But her and I need to follow up, and we'll get back with you more on 250. But they have been coming up with the activities. I think you can report when you went to Parks and Rec board that they had some that they're come up with, right?
Yeah, their movies in the park night will have a themed, on the 3rd, it will be kind of themed that way, and it sounded like each committee is coming up with something.
Yes.
So.
Correct. I went to a ribbon cutting at the Caldwell Banker office last week. That was nice.
Very nice.
I didn't realize that Councilwoman Herseth had some connections there. So that was fun to see her there and her husband. But they were down there in the new in the what is it, the MTC building? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was nice. That was something that the Lakesiders did from the Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting. We appointed a week ago Monday as interim chief Jeff Larson. And we will be meeting together again shortly as a fire board to see where we go in the future with that. But he's been a good soothing influence to Ashley, that's Greg's widow, and their family, and helping the department through right now. Bryce, will you help me? Will you come up and report? I had to miss last Thursday because I had another board meeting in my responsibilities. Did you end up going to the 4th of July one, or did you not go? So the Inkler's on top of it. They got some things going. Is there anything that you want to tell council?
Is he trying to win the contest?
Or are we just on top of it?
Yeah, they're on track. I don't have anything to report. I'm kind of lost for words.
That's a first.
I set you up for that one. I went to an event a couple Saturdays ago where we did like a battle of the bands, and we got to see a bunch of different bands, and so we picked, I think, 3 people. We're gonna have like boom, boom, boom headliners, 3 back to back to back, and we're gonna be well under budget for that. Something that is a challenge this year with everything being on the 4th of July is everything's coming at a premium cost. Most of the stage went up to almost $3,500 just on stage, and some of our other expenses are going up as well. So that will be something we'll address in the budget in a few weeks, of the rising costs of doing this on the 4th of July. Trying to think what else.
What is the
They're
cost to buy our own stage? Like, at what point does that break even?
10, 15 years probably. I mean, you're probably talking a couple $100,000 easy.
Okay.
I mean, it's, yeah, I don't know, something we can explore, but it's pretty pricey. And we're only using it one time a year. So, I mean, it is,
Do people ever sell them? Like, could you buy a used one?
yeah, but then we've got to find someone to run the sound. It's the nice thing about the guy we have is
Oh, you get the sound with it?
sound and lighting and the stage. So, I mean, there are
Okay.
pros and cons. There are going to be a couple, so like next year, I believe, we're not going to be on the 4th again. I can't remember. It's going to rotate again off on a Saturday because it's on a Sunday. So we'll have some savings potentially there. All of the chairs kind of have co-chairs because this is the year that a lot of the chairs will rotate off, including the Inkleys. And so they've put together some ideas, and I think, Mayor, they've given you some names of some potentially some people that could take over. I told the Inkleys they were on for 5 years. Hopefully that was okay. But no. I'm trying to think what else. What day is it on this year? I can't even remember. I just know it's on the 4th of July. Friday?
Saturday this year.
Saturday. So the children's parade is going to be on Friday night. That's going to be something that's different. And we'll be working with police to get that taken care of, so.
That's all gonna coincide okay with the movie in the park on the
Yeah,
3rd?
in fact, the way they've designed it is that it's gonna actually end at the park, and so draw people to the park for that event, so. So yeah, that Friday night activity is kind of the hometown for the locals, type of event. They're gonna have a movie in the park and some activities.
So is it gonna be at
having a
this
band
park or
too?
it's gonna be over?
It's at your
Smith?
park.
It's at Smith Park, and I think they're having some I can't remember, but I think they've.
We'll have a concert.
I'll look at my notes.
So we'll have a
It's I think-
concert and a movie, and then some
that's it.
vendor stuff, some food, and tons of activities. The Parks and Rec Committee kind of does that, and that's kind of their baby. And then they'll have a pickleball activity on the Monday before, and then I can't, Gina, do you remember what day the children's market's on the Monday too, I think?
Oh, I don't know if I caught that in my
Can't remember.
notes.
I'll
Sorry.
give you a better update, I'm sorry, I didn't have it all. And the website's down, so, I couldn't look it up for you anyways, so I apologize for
I do not have
that.
that, I missed it, sorry.
So, any other questions?
Well, at least got a compliment, they like,
I know.
you like the new
The day
website,
they went
even
down.
though it's down, right?
So-
Thank you, Bryce, I just wanted to give you guys an update that we are moving ahead on it. And I had to miss that meeting, because like I said, I had another board meeting in my responsibility. That's it for me, unless anybody has any questions.
I have a question. Were we supposed to do anything with the general plan, or put it at the table, or did we vote on anything for the general plan? Were we not going to? To table it, or to?
We're moving ahead with further
Okay, so we
further
didn't
work
need to.
sessions.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah, there wasn't any vote on anything.
Is the public hearing closed on the general plan?
Well, that one was, I would think that, as we get to,
I'm sure we'll open
Final
more. I
general
just
pl-
wanted to know if that one was closed.
yeah, okay.
Just felt like it kind of ended, but didn't really end.
Well, it's just a matter of scheduling it in, what you guys can do schedule-wise. I mean, this kind of maybe goes into Brandt's city manager report, but we got 2 weeks from tonight a caucus that city council was, canceled for to allow you to go to your caucus meetings. Then we got budget meetings on the night after that, on the 18th and the 19th. And so then it leads, as far as official city council meetings, it leads to the 7th of April, so. So we'll just, we'll come out with the plan and based on dates that we can do it and run that by you. So, Brant.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. One is, I guess, philosophical to some extent. I've been thinking about a class I took at USC in statistics in my international relations classes, and the thing that's come to mind, I've shared this with staff already, is big N versus little n problems. And really, this is what's kind of fascinating about this discussion is what we focused on in the class was data versus anecdotal. As you're going through these decisions that you have to make as council, big N is large population, large survey groups. Little n is small population, small survey groups, which is the anecdotal side. So sometimes when we're making these decisions, the anecdotal is critical to know, but be careful to make sure that this defines the entire population. And one of the examples I could think of as a small hospital, the birth is gender 65% males, and it's a small hospital. 65% of the births are males. So, well, all births then are across the board are all 65% males. But no, but if you take a larger sample size, a bigger hospital, then you're more closer to 50-50, right? So as we look at these anecdotals, they're critical to helping make decisions, but we can't lose sight of the big end. And there's a 1971 article that was part of our studies that defines all of these. So big N versus little n. Sometimes I feel like we get caught up in the little n a little bit, and we forget about the big N. And I've always thought Centerville's been great, and that's what I love about it here is we've always been data-driven, and I think that's always been helpful to help tell the story when we look at the data. So again, I just want, as we go through this, don't forget about the data, because it's critical, and I think it's very helpful in driving our decisions. So I wanted to share that. And lastly, I just want to take my moment to share my thoughts on Chief Stewart. He will be dearly missed, and we had a great conversation 2 days before he passed that I will forever remember. And I'll share with you a little bit. I won't share all of it, but a part of that I shared with them, says, you know, could you imagine 30 years ago we'd be where we are today and these decisions that we make and the challenges we face. And we both kind of discussed the challenges we're faced with today. But at the same time, we also appreciated the purpose-driven life that we have chosen that guides us as much as it might get bumpy here and there. We are driven by purpose. And I think we both just kind of said yes. And I appreciated the conversation and with him, just to kind of remind me and reminisce together. But anyway, I will dearly miss him and the example he set for me that I could be a little bit better. And one thing I learned today is we need to suck less. That's what I learned from the funeral. And that's something he regularly says, we just need to suck less. But yeah, I think there's always opportunity for improvement, and Chief Stewart, I appreciate the reminder to continue to be steadfast and serving people and doing the right thing, even if it's hard. So I appreciate him, and I will miss him. But I'm also appreciated that I got to know him really well. So that's all I have, Mayor, unless there's questions for me.
Any questions, Brad? I don't think we have a closed session item tonight, right?
Not unless you want to.
So, anything else? Look for a motion to adjourn, if not.
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned.